Chapter 1561 Zhongxian's birth name Pu. Zhong Wuheng shook his head in disbelief as he staggered backward. He felt as if thunder was rumbling ceaselessly in his mind, threatening to blow his head up. He knew that Zhong Zhouxiao was on friendly terms with Zhongxian, but he did not think that the latter would actually be Zhongxian's student. The Combat Master Hall had finally found a talented genius worthy of becoming its next hall master, Zhongxian's student. The Poison Hall had finally found a person who possessed the innate poison body, Zhongxian's student. The Spirit Awakener Guild had finally discovered a genius who managed to clear the Spirit Awakener Tower, Zhongxian's student. The Glacier Plain Court had finally stumbled upon a prodigy blessed with the pure yin body, Zhongxian's student. The Yuan clan had located an offspring who possessed exceptionally pure Emperor's bloodline, Zhongxian's student. And as if all of that was not enough. How many years did it take the Zhong clan to birth an offspring with a bloodline of such purity, and that offspring was freaking Zhongxian's student as well? Was everyone talented in the master-teacher continent Zhongxian's student? Could things get any more ridiculous than that? This. Zhong Wuheng was not the only one whose mind was on the verge of exploding at that moment. Sword Saint Xing nearly fell from his chair after seeing Zhong Zhouxiao's actions as well. Xian'er, he is your student, too? Ha 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 ha. Before Zhongxian could reply, Sword Saint Meng had already burst into frenzied laughter. It was apparent that Zhong Wuheng wanted to exact vengeance for the humiliation that he had suffered, but that narrow mind of his would probably never have been able to fathom that the trump card that he had prepared would actually turn out to be her son's student. With his knees still on the ground, Zhong Zhouxiao glanced at the elders and declared solemnly, "I was just an offspring of the Side family who possessed a humble bloodline purity. If not for my teacher refining my bloodline, I wouldn't even be qualified to practice the cultivation techniques of the Zhong clan." Refining your bloodline? So, it's all because of the young prodigy refining your bloodline that your bloodline became this pure? Once again, a huge commotion broke out amid the elders. In truth, due to the tournament back then, most of them had been aware that Zhong Zhouxiao possessed extraordinarily pure bloodline. However, they had not expected his bloodline to not be innate but refined postnatally. That's right. Zhong Zhouxiao nodded. Is it really possible to refine the purity of one's bloodline? How in the world was it done? I heard that not only is the young prodigy a powerful expert himself, his students are also formidable figures. The head of the Combat Master Hall, the chief of the Glacier Plain Court. In fact, even Yang Shi is his junior. I suppose it shouldn't be too difficult for a person like him to be able to refine our bloodline. That does make some sense. Zhong Zhouxiao's words caused the eyes around to light up in excitement. The hierarchy within sage clans was centered around the purity of one's bloodline. It was both a symbol of status and power. If the young prodigy really possessed a way to refine their bloodline, the prowess of the Zhong clan would grow by leaps and bounds, possibly reaching a level unthinkable to them in the past. Ignoring the discussion among the crowd, Zhongxian turned to Sword Saint Xing and replied, "He's the last student I've accepted." His intention for accepting Zhong Zhouxiao as his student back then was to deal with the young prodigy, but who could have thought that he would turn out to be the young prodigy himself? This. Hearing the confirmation from his son and seeing the deep respect and admiration in Zhong Zhouxiao's eyes, Sword Saint Xing burst into laughter. "Zhong Wuheng, you said that my son doesn't have a droplet of the Zhong clan bloodline in his veins and is unqualified to be the head of the Zhong clan, right?" "Aye." Zhong Wuheng's face flushed crimson. Clan head, Zhong Wuheng has disregarded the interests for the Zhong clan over his private grudge. I suggest we strip him of his position as the first elder and lock him up. Indeed. How dare he cast doubt over the legitimacy of the young prodigy just to fulfill his personal interests? This is unacceptable. I propose that we send him down to the subterranean gallery to have him reflect on his own mistakes. In the blink of an eye, all those who had supported Zhong Wuheng a moment ago turned their backs on him. The ability to refine the Zhong clan bloodline effectively meant that the young prodigy was able to dictate the distribution of power within the Zhong clan. No one in the Zhong clan would be foolish enough to oppose him. As such, even if Zhongxian's bloodline had not met the required level of purity to become the clan head, just his ability to refine the bloodline of others was enough to win him a unanimous vote from the elders to become the next clan head. Men, Take Zhong Wuheng away. Sword Saint Xing waved his hand before turning his gaze back to the crowd. Does anyone else have any objections to my son becoming the next clan head? The young prodigy was the head of our Zhong clan from the very start. It's only a matter of affirming his title and announcing it to the world. I concur. Soon, all of the elders had clasped their fists and bowed down as a symbol of submission. Seeing that there was no more opposition, Sword Saint Xing nodded in satisfaction before instructing, "Very well. I need all of you to coordinate together to prepare for the ritual and inauguration ceremony tomorrow. Also, make sure not to speak of anything that has happened here to others. I won't hesitate to brand anyone who tattles a traitor, and all of you should be aware of the eventual fate of traitors." If news was leaked that his son possessed the ability to refine bloodlines, it would surely cause a massive uproar in the master-teacher continent. Naturally, he did not wish for any unnecessary trouble to come to his son. "We understand," the elders replied resoundingly before leaving the hall. "Zhou, you can leave as well. I want you to make full use of your bloodline to advance your cultivation over the next few days. Once your cultivation surpasses that of the first elder, you'll be able to take over as the clan head," Zhong Xian instructed. Even though he would prefer to pass the position on to Zhong Zhou right away, the latter was still a little too weak at the moment. It would be difficult for him to bear the reputation of the Zhong clan and establish his dominance over other powers. "Yes, teacher." Zhong Zhou nodded before backing out of the hall. Hearing that his son was intending to pass the position of clan head down to Zhong Zhou, a hint of panic surfaced in Sword Saint Xing's eyes. "Xian'er, you. It's just a clan head position, I don't have any desire for it. The only reason I would want this identity is to ask for the little princess's hand in marriage from a better position. Beyond that, anyone who wants the position can become the clan head for all I care." Zhong Xian shrugged nonchalantly. To be honest, he really did not think much about being the head of the Zhong clan. In fact, he felt that it would be more trouble than it was worth. Since that was the case, he might as well toss it down to Zhong Zhou. But Sword Saint Xing was just about to protest when Sword Saint Meng abruptly interjected. "My son is someone who will achieve great things in the future. What does the clan head position count as? Only a person as inept as you would think so highly of it." Cough cough. Seeing that his mother had begun putting down his father again, Zhong Xian shook his head helplessly and interjected with a cough. With most of the problems ahead of them resolved, Zhong Xian suddenly recalled the various doubts that he had regarding his identity, so he asked, "Since I am your son and the young prodigy of the Zhong clan, why would I end up in the Qianqian kingdom? Also, why isn't there any of the Zhong clan bloodline flowing through my veins?" This was the matter that had left him baffled for a very long time. There was no doubt that the Zhong clan was powerful, and as the top genius of the Zhong clan, a carnate saint at that, how did he end up in a place as remote as the Qianqian kingdom, where there was not even a master-teacher pavilion? Not to mention, it did not make sense for him to be Sword Saint Xing's son when he did not have the Zhong clan bloodline in him. Also, if he was a carnate saint at birth, how could his cultivation only have been at Fighter 3 Danjunchi realm when he first transcended over to this body? It's a long story. Back then, when you were born, a brilliant aurora filled the sky. A lofty aura descended from the heavens, and the tablets of the predecessors swiftly bowed in submission. Even Kong Shi's sculpture rose into the air as a gesture of recognition. It was due to these phenomena that the entire world came to know of you as the young prodigy who possessed the purest Zhong clan bloodline. Sword Saint Xing sighed deeply as he spoke of the past. Even Kong Shi's sculpture rose into the air. "Is that why I'm called Zhong Xian?" Zhong Xian asked excitedly. "Ah, no, of course not. Your birth name isn't Zhong Xian," Sword Saint Xing said. "If you had retained the name that we gave you, we would have found you ages ago." "What's my birth name then?" "This." Sword Saint Xing's face reddened. "It might be better for you not to hear it. Is there something inappropriate about my birth name?" Zhong Xian was slightly bewildered by Sword Saint Xing's reaction. It was with the agitation from witnessing Kong Shi's sculpture rising into the air that inspired your father to name you so. However, it doesn't even come close to sounding as nice as Zhong Xian. Sword Saint Meng grumbled furiously by the side your name is. Zhong Jiaofei. Xian has the meaning of floating in midair. Zhong Diaofei literally means flying sculpture. To give an analogy of how it sounds in Chinese, it would be someone equivalent to a parent naming their daughter Squirry after seeing some squirrels or naming their son Firework after seeing fireworks. Chapter 1562 Sword Saint Xing's name Pu. Zhong Xian spat out a mouthful of saliva, and he nearly cried on the spot. Zhong Diaofei. Diaofei, like in the sense of hanging on a noose. Is this a name that a human should have? As a father, is it really all right to name your son so carelessly? Appalling, right? Back then, I ignored him for days on end over the name that he gave you. Sword Saint Meng harumphed indignantly. It's not as if you didn't know the circumstances surrounding him. There's a superstition that the more down-to-earth one's name is, the more resilient one will be. I was also praying for an auspicious omen here. Besides, it's just a birth name. We could always give him a more decent official name later on, Sword Saint Xing retorted with an awkward smile. Often, children who were born with poor health or natural defects would be given awful-sounding names such as Go Dan, Go Sheng, Maro Dan, or Pai. It was believed that the more awful-sounding a child's name was, the more tenacious they would be. Outsiders might have believed that his son had a bright future ahead of him, but Sword Saint Xing knew very well that was not the case. The least he could do for his son was give him an awful-sounding name in hopes of bringing him luck to get through that difficult phase. Besides, it was only a birth name. Once they had gotten past the difficult phase, they could simply give him a more decent official name, and the others would slowly forget his birth name with time. You still dare speak about official names? Why don't you tell our son what the official name that you have chosen for him is? Sword Saint Meng harumphed coldly. This. Sword Saint Xing scratched his head embarrassedly, seemingly finding it difficult to speak of the matter. Staring at Sword Saint Xing intently, Zhong Xian asked, "What is it?" "Your official name is Anbang." Sword Saint Xing eventually caved in under the piercing gaze of his wife and his son. "Zhong Anbang. Pu." Zhong Xian spat out another mouthful of saliva, nearly choking himself to death in the process. This name did not sound as awful as Diaofei, but still, it was too old-fashioned. It really doesn't sound awful at all. I am Zhenxing while you are Anbang. How fitting. Zhenxing. Your name is Zhong Zhenxing. Zhong Xian's face twitched upon hearing those words. He knew that the title Xingmeng Sword Saints was derived from taking a character each from their names. All along, he had thought that his father had some kind of domineering name, but who would have thought it was Zhong Zhenxing? It was even more old-fashioned than Anbang. Zhong Xian clutched his forehead in despair. It was fortunate that he had gone missing while he was still young. Otherwise, just the thought of having to introduce himself to Zhong Anbang to friends and foes alike, he would not have been able to live with the shame. I'll just stick with Zhong Xian. I think it sounds all right. Zhong Xian shook his head, firmly refusing the notion of using the names that Sword Saint Xing had decided for him. Getting back to the topic at hand, Zhong Xian asked, "Given that I was born with an exceptionally powerful bloodline, not to mention the fact that I'm a Carnate Saint, it would make sense that the Zhong clan would protect me carefully. Why would I?" Hearing Zhong Xian's question, Sword Saint Xing fell into a moment of silence, unsure of how he should explain the matter to his son. A moment later, he stood up and said, "Dear Yang Shi, I think it would be better for me to talk to Xian'er privately about this matter." "All right then." Yang Shi and Sword Saint Meng nodded in agreement. "All right, follow me," Sword Saint Xing told Zhong Xian before leading the way forward. Soon, the two of them arrived in a massive hall. The hall was dark and gloomy, devoid of any light. There was a unique seal shrouding the area. Sword Saint Xing walked right up to the seal and placed his palm lightly on it. Hoolah! The torches within the hall abruptly burst into flames, lighting up the interior. Zhong Xian quickly looked ahead, but instead of a vast hall, what had appeared before him was a narrow passageway with innumerable relief carvings. Walking into the passageway, Sword Saint Xing stopped before one of the relief carvings. It depicted a white-beard elder battling ferociously against hordes of otherworldly demons. It was an intense battle with incredible surges of energy bursting forth from here and there, and it seemed almost as if the world would be burned down. Behind the elder was a group of powerless civilians. If the elder fell, There was little doubt that the otherworldly demons would move on to slaughter them all. This elder over here is the first-generation ancestor of our Zhong clan, and is also our very first clan head. He's one of the few cultivators who managed to advance his cultivation to the level of ancient sage in his time, and he fought tenaciously in a total of 37 deadly wars for mankind. In each war, he drove himself to the very limits, never hesitating to risk his life to strike a heavy blow on the otherworldly demons. If not for him, the Zhong clan wouldn't have survived the tragic war back then, and at least half of mankind wouldn't have made it through the war. There's no doubt that he's a hero among us, Sword Saint Xing explained with deep respect in his eyes. Zhong Xian nodded. If not for the rise of countless hot-blooded heroes during that dark era, mankind never would have enjoyed the peace and prosperity that it had in the current age. He had heard of the affairs of the founder of the Zhong clan as well. While his radiance was diminished by the presence of Kong Shi back in that era, there was no doubt that he was a highly talented man whose very presence brought his comrades courage back in that era of turmoil. With just a sword in hand, he had barged into the camps of the otherworldly demons and slaughtered many of their emperors. All in all, the 9-star master teachers that he had rescued from the jaws of death numbered at least 20. There was even on occasion when the otherworldly demons launched a sudden assault, catching everyone off guard. He had fought desperately for 3 days straight, single-handedly keeping them at bay until reinforcements arrived, thus saving the lives of millions of people. This valiant middle-aged man over here is the second clan head of our Zhong clan. He also managed to reach ancient sage, and all in all, he fought in more than 100 battles with the otherworldly demonic tribe. Due to the severe injuries that he sustained over the years, he ended up dying a premature death. It was said that even at his time of death, there was a finger of the otherworldly demon buried deep in his chest, symbolizing the courage and tenacity that he had displayed in protecting mankind. This is the third clan head of our Zhong clan. In his early years, he ventured deep into the subterranean gallery, only to have his hand severed in the midst of a battle. He decisively used the talons of a saint beast in place of his hand in order to continue the fight, and eventually, he created a unique battle technique based on that. This is the 4th clan head of our Zhong clan. This is the 9th clan head of our Zhong clan. Every single carving along the passageway was a monument of a hero in their era. In the tens of thousands of years since Kong Shi departed from the Master Teacher continent, the otherworldly demonic tribe has launched many attacks, only to be forced back each time. This isn't just the credit of the Master Teacher Pavilion and Combat Master Hall. Our Zhong clan has played a vital role as well. In fact, it can be said that our title as the number 1 sage clan was forged through our flesh and blood. Sword Saint Xing said. Zhong Xian clenched his fists tightly. Looking at the relief carvings as he listened to the stories of the past, he could imagine just how precarious a situation mankind had been in back in those eras. The predecessors had unhesitatingly sacrificed everything that they had in order to forge an era of prosperity for mankind. All along, he had thought that the Zhong clan had abused its position as the number 1 sage clan to force others to do its bidding, leaving him a little skeptical about its title. However, upon seeing these relief carvings, he realized that the Zhong clan's position on the Master Teacher continent was derived not just from their strength but the massive contribution that they had made as well. But around 10,000 years ago, the world underwent a massive change, and all of a sudden, no one was able to make a breakthrough to ancient sage anymore. It didn't take long for people to realize that mankind might have reached the end of the line. With a grim look on his face, Sword Saint Xing explained, in order to fend off the otherworldly demons so as to preserve the heritage of mankind, the ancient sages of that generation made an agreement to use a special temporal method to hibernate. They would only be awoken when a battle broke out, and after defeating their enemies, they would return to their hibernation. This was probably a life worse than death, but for the sake of mankind, they willingly chose it. This. Zhong Xian widened his mouth in astonishment. He had heard from Yang Shi that there were human ancient sage cultivators who had survived the ages through using some sort of temporal secret art, but he still could not help but respect them for the sacrifices that they had made for mankind. As ancient sages, they stood at the very peak of the Master Teacher continent, enjoying unparalleled honor and prestige. As long as they willed it, they could have dominated that era with their strength and obtained everything that they wanted. Yet, for the future generations, They chose to hibernate so that they could protect mankind as long as they could. And are both homonyms that are pronounced as jiao, but one means flying sculpture while the other means hanging on a noose. Dog guts leftover dog food. Balut thick-skinned. Anbang basically means peace and stability to the country, a weirdly patriotic and old-fashioned name that hardly anyone uses anymore. Zhenxing means to bring a country to greatness. Anbang means to bring peace and stability to a country. Chapter 1563 Origin of the innate fetal poison. Such a decision condemned them to an endless cycle of battle, slaughter, and pain. But in exchange for a spark of hope for mankind, they were willing to make such a sacrifice. Sword Saint Xing's eyes reddened a little as he spoke. It is thanks to their protection that mankind has been able to develop stably over the past 10,000 years. Humans are still able to live in peace in huge cities instead of being enslaved by others. Based on what I know, there's an ancient sage who was only 500 years old when he went into hibernation. He still had at least a good 1,000 years ahead of him, and more importantly, he had just wedded another ancient sage during that period of time. However, when he came to learn that it was impossible to achieve a breakthrough to ancient sage anymore, he decisively used the temporal secret art on himself and fell into a deep sleep. Over the thousands of years, the only occasions that he got to see his wife from afar was when war broke out, but even so, they never found a chance to say a single word to one another. What was even more tragic was that during a major battle 5,000 years ago, his wife was cornered by 3 otherworldly demonic emperors. In order to save her, he set his life force aflame, and eventually, he departed from the world with his loved one in hand. Had he not chosen such a life, he and his wife would have had a good 1,000 years ahead of them. They would have been able to roam the world freely, enjoying a carefree and blissful life. Perhaps, they would also have had many students and children. Yet, in order to defend mankind, he gave up all of that. There's also an ancient sage whose daughter had just been born when she made the decision to go into hibernation. Her daughter wasn't too talented, such that she didn't even manage to reach Saint Realm. On one occasion, she sustained grievous wounds in a battle with an enemy, causing her to die before she could even reach 100 years old. There was no war during that period of time, so the ancient sage remained asleep. To the day that her daughter had died, she had not been able to see her. When she was finally woken, she learned that her daughter had already been dead for dozens of years, and she was silent for a very long while before charging solemnly into the battlefield. Eventually, she met her end in that very battlefield. Sword Saint Xing could not help but tremble a little as he recounted the sacrifices that the predecessors had made in order to protect mankind. There was a long moment of silence before Zhongxian asked, "Does the temporal secret art of the ancient sages halt their time, or do they continue aging?" This secret art reminded Zhongxian of the cryonics technology in his previous world. The concept of cryonics technology was centered around freezing a human body to seal its current condition, thus allowing the possibility of resuscitation in the future. But no matter how well a person's body was sealed using cryonics technology, there would still be gradual wear and tear over time. Even if someone was successfully resuscitated in the future, there was no way that their body could function as well as it did before. The secret art of the ancient sages allows one's lifespan to be extended significantly, but even in the state of hibernation, their vitality will still slowly seep away. In other words, they will continue to age even while they are in hibernation, just that the aging process is slowed considerably. While it sounds complicated, the concept behind it is actually rather simple. To put it in other words, they are sleeping in a dimension where the flow of time is slower than the real world. 1 year within the dimension is equivalent to 10 years outside, Sword Saint Xing said grimly. However, even with a 1-to-10 ratio, they still age. The passing of 10,000 years means that they have already aged 1,000 years. Even the younger ancient sages during the time of the hibernation are already reaching the end of their lives, not to mention that the frequent battles with the otherworldly demonic tribe have caused destructive killing intent to seep into their body, thus hastening the aging process. The ancient sages who chose to go into hibernation then are already approaching their final years. The otherworldly demonic tribe has yet to successfully overcome the seals and launch a mass invasion, but once we lose the strength of the ancient sages, it will only be a matter of time before we are annihilated. Zhongxian fell into deep contemplation. To make an analogy, ancient sages were somewhat equivalent to the atomic bombs in his previous life. Even without using one, the very possession of such a weapon deterred enemies from running amok. The otherworldly demonic tribe had been eyeing the master-teacher continent for many years, lying patiently in wait for the humans to expose an opening for them to strike. In this matter, the otherworldly demonic tribe held the definitive advantage due to their longer lifespan. Even if they did not go into hibernation, they would still be able to easily outlive the hibernating human cultivators. This was the fundamental difference in their constitution. There was nothing that could make up for it. 20 years ago, a spatial disturbance was detected in Tsufu, and a mirage of the Temple of Confucius surfaced, which provoked the otherworldly demonic tribe. They began amassing their armies in the subterranean galleries, heralding an impending war. But mankind already didn't have many ancient sages left, so the final ancient sage of our Zhong clan had no choice but to awaken and join the fray. Sword Saint Xing shook his head grimly. The final ancient sage? How many ancient sages of the Zhong clan went into hibernation back then? Zhong Xian couldn't help but ask. There was a total of 9 of them, but the many years of war caused them to either pass away or go into eternal sleep. As a result, we only have one living ancient sage to date, and he's the 27th clan head, Zhong Hongtian. There's only one ancient sage remaining out of 9. Zhong Xian's eyebrows shot up. 9 ancient sages that had probably been the entirety of the Zhong clan's top-tier fighting prowess then. It seemed that the glory the Zhong clan enjoyed was cemented by many sacrifices. Indeed, the war 20 years ago was indescribably treacherous. Ancestor Zhong Hongtian sustained grievous wounds from battle, putting him on the verge of death. There was only one way to save him, and that was to infuse even purer Zhong clan bloodline into him. Talking up to this point, Sword Saint Xing's face visibly stiffened a little as his eyes started taking on a tint of red. Back then, there was no one in the clan whose bloodline reached the mark to save ancestor Zhong Hongtian. Only you, who were still in your mother's womb back then, reached the mark. Me? Zhong Xian's body jolted. He could finally see why his father had brought him here. There were only 2 options back then. Firstly, if we chose not to use your bloodline, ancestor Zhong Hongtian would have passed away, and mankind would have lost one of its few remaining guardians against the otherworldly demonic tribe. Secondly, we could use your bloodline to save him, but that would mean putting your life at risk. At this moment, Sword Saint Xing looked deeply at Zhong Xian before sighing. Your mother vehemently opposed it, but I eventually went against her will and chose the second option. This. Zhong Xian fell silent. This was not an easy decision to make, especially for Sword Saint Xing, who had just had his first child. If he chose the first option, while his child would be saved, mankind would lose one of the few precious ancient sages that it had remaining, placing it in an even more treacherous position than before. Such a decision would be equivalent to placing the cart before the horse. If mankind was destroyed, what would the Zhong clan count as? Even if his child survived, he would have a difficult life ahead of him. But choosing the second option was no different from strangling his unborn child to death with his own hands. There was no father in the world who could possibly make such a decision easily. Sometimes, having to make a choice was worse than being forced into a situation. Zhong Xian could not say that he knew Sword Saint Xing well, but he could tell that the latter was not a heartless person. He could feel that the latter cared deeply for him, so making his decision back then must have really broken his heart. It was apparent to any rational mind which the correct decision to make was, but it was never easy to sever one's emotions and make the correct decision. There is only one fate left for those who have been stripped of their bloodline, death. But I was indignant. I couldn't accept such an outcome. I approached Yangshe and begged for his help. He told me about the existence of a unique poison in the world that could emulate the effects of a bloodline. He had a poison master plant the poison in your mother's womb, thus granting you a hope of survival even after your bloodline was torn away from you. After you were born, Yangshe personally grafted your bloodline to ancestor Zhong Hongtian and successfully saved him. Shortly after, ancestor Zhong Hongtian went back into hibernation. However, the operation left you severely wounded, placing you on the verge of death. In order to save you, we had to swiftly teleport you to one of the ancient domains, hoping that your bloodline would slowly heal with time. However, despite all of the protective measures that we placed on you in order to fend off the spatial turbulence from teleportation, you were simply in too weak a state to take the stress of teleportation. It didn't seem like you would have survived to the end of the teleportation, so I made the decision to forcefully eject you from the teleportation formation. That decision might have saved your life, but it made us lose sight of you as well. It seems like everything has worked out well in the end, but still. At this point, Sword Saint Xing lowered his head apologetically and bowed down. Xiena, please forgive your incapable father who has caused you so much suffering. Chapter 1564 Surge in Prowess. I see. All of Zhong Xian's doubts were finally resolved. It was no wonder his previous self would end up in somewhere as remote as the Qianxian kingdom, living a pitiful life as an orphan. Even when he finally breathed his last, he was still a nobody, devoid of anyone's care and concern. Even though he was not too sure how his bloodline had been torn out of his body, it was bound to be at least as deadly as back when all of Zhao Yue's meridians ruptured. If not for his previous self's superior physical resilience as a carnate saint, as well as the Zhong clan's vast resources, he could very well have died back then. Wait a moment. Something is wrong. If the innate fetal poison was an intentional doing by the Zhong clan, why would Kongsha be afflicted with the innate fetal poison, too? Zhong Xian frowned. Kongsha's body had been afflicted with the innate fetal poison. This was something that he had just verified earlier. However, in Kongsha's era, it was still possible for cultivators to become ancient sages. Surely there was no need for anyone to go to the extent of tearing his bloodline out of his body. With such thoughts in mind, Zhong Xian hurriedly asked, "May I know what form the poison that you mentioned comes in? Also, what kind of effect does it have on one's body?" The innate fetal poison can be used to substitute one's bloodline, thus allowing one's bodily functions to continue as per usual in the short term. However, the poison places an immense strain on the body, such that a person afflicted with it will usually die before stepping into their 20s if they haven't found a way to cure or suppress it by then. Speaking up to this point, Sword Saint Xing looked at Zhong Xian and said, "You are already in your early 20s, and you have successfully raised your cultivation beyond the saint realm. From the looks of it, you should have already resolved the innate fetal poison, right?" One of his son's students happened to be the master of the poison hall, so he was bound to have a deep understanding of poison as well. Furthermore, his son did not look sickly or debilitated in the least, so he assumed that his son had already cured himself. Yes, I have already resolved it. Not wanting his father to overthink this matter, Zhong Xian nodded. Earlier, his father had said that the innate fetal poison would kill its host within 20 years, so it was very likely that his previous self had died from the innate fetal poison. But now, he was starting to wonder if the poison that he was afflicted with was the same innate fetal poison that his previous self had died from. From the sound of it, the innate fetal poison that had been planted into him back then was not too formidable, given how unworried his father was about the matter. However, when he spoke to Kongsha a while ago, the latter had said that the true problem would come after the innate fetal poison was cured. Could it be that the appearance of the Library of Heaven's Path had caused some kind of unpredictable change to the innate fetal poison? However, that was no longer important. What was most important was for him to raise his cultivation swiftly and become a 9-star master teacher as soon as possible. Noticing the dazed look on Zhong Xian's face, he thought that the latter was just a little overwhelmed by the news that he had just heard and needed some time to digest all that shocking information. Thus, Sword Saint Xing said with a smile, "All right. You should be exhausted from all the information that you have just received, so let's stop here for tonight. Rest well. Tomorrow, we'll be bringing you to the ancestral hall to pay respects to your ancestors and hold the inauguration ceremony to officialize your position as the clan head. After that, we'll be heading over to the Luo clan to ask for your little lover's hand in marriage." Zhong Xian nodded. He had not even realized it himself earlier, but he was indeed feeling a little drained at the moment. He had already been feeling a little sapped back when the power from the Pavilion Master Seal's droplet receded from him, but due to the many matters that he had to deal with, he had been left with no choice but to hold on till now. Thus, the two of them walked out of the passageway, and right before they parted, Zhong Xian suddenly turned to Sword Saint Xing and asked, "Sword Saint Xing, do you have any pinnacle spirit stones or items rich in spiritual energy on hand?" I want to reinforce my cultivation and try pushing for a breakthrough if possible. While he had already recognized the middle-aged man before him as his father, he still found it a little difficult for him to address the other party as father. On the other hand, Sword Saint Xing knew that he had been absent for most of his son's life, so it was understandable that it would be hard for his son to accept him all of a sudden. He was a little disappointed by the matter, but he knew that this was a problem that could only be slowly resolved with time. Thus, he smiled and said, "You wish to reinforce your cultivation? I don't have too many pinnacle spirit stones with me at the moment, only around 2,000 of them. You can use them for now. I do have quite a few items that are rich in spiritual energy, too. These 10 jade bottles here each have a grade 9 pill in them, and they are fantastic for replenishing depleted energy. Right, I also have 2 gourds of earth vein marrow essence over here, and they are fairly great too. Oh, I also have 2 white scar spirit stones here. I obtained them during a mission a while ago. They can aid you in the advancement of your cultivation." As Sword Saint Xing spoke, he took out object after object from his storage ring. This. Zhong Xian's lips twitched. All along, he had thought that he could be considered fairly rich, but compared to Sword Saint Xing, he was really as good as a beggar. 2,000 pinnacle spirit stones, 10 grade 9 pills, 2 gourds of earth vein marrow essence. Any single one of those items was worth more than his entire fortune. It was no wonder everyone admired those who were born in large clans. Just the amount of resources that they had access to was something that unaffiliated cultivators would never be able to compare to. If he had possessed these resources back when he was still in the Tianqian kingdom, he might already have become an ancient sage by now. Noticing that his son was standing quietly on the spot, Sword Saint Xing thought that his son was snubbing him for the meager wealth that he possessed, so he quickly clarified with an awkward look on his face, "This is just my private stash. If it isn't enough, you can ask for more from your mother. She has many more good items than me." No, this is more than enough." Zhong Xian shook his head in horror. In the end, this was only his private stash. It seemed like having parents was not too bad after all. At the very least, he did not have to worry about a lack of resources in his future cultivation anymore. That's a relief. "We have always kept your residence empty in case you ever returned. Come, let me show you there." After Zhong Xian stowed the items into his storage ring, Sword Saint Xing quickly led the way forward. Before his son was even born, he had specially ordered that a residence be constructed for him. Things did not go as planned, but Sword Saint Xing never allowed anyone to move into the residence. Perhaps with the hope that their son would return one day, they had the servants clean the residence every day, but they never allowed anyone to stay there. Since his son had finally returned, it went without saying that he should stay in that residence. Before long, the 2 men arrived in a relatively large residence. As soon as Zhong Xian walked in, he immediately felt rich spiritual energy shrouding him, revitalizing him. He scanned the residence with his gaze, and he had to admit that he was rather satisfied with the accommodation. Thus, he clasped his fist and said, "All right, I'll be taking my rest then." Knowing that his son was bound to be exhausted after his long day, Sword Saint Xing patted his shoulder before walking out. Zhong Xian walked Sword Saint Xing out before walking around the residence to find the spot with the highest concentration of spiritual energy. After which, he took out his pinnacle spirit stones and began recovering his depleted energy. After recuperating for roughly 4 hours, he finally recovered to his peak condition, and he felt reinvigorated once more. It's about time to push for a breakthrough. Zhong Xian thought excitedly. The Master Teacher Pavilion had not sent over the Saint 9 Dan cultivation technique manuals yet, but from the thousands of books that he had collected from the 9-star Master Teachers, he had managed to successfully compile the Saint 8 Dan Heaven's Path Divine Art. Immersing his consciousness into the library of Heaven's Path, he placed his finger on the compiled Heaven's Path Divine Art Manual, and the content of the book swiftly flowed into his mind, becoming his knowledge. Upon reaching Saint 8 Dan Dimension Sundering Realm, a cultivator would be able to create isolated spaces from the rest of the world through their dominion. Zhong Xian drove his zhenqi according to the circulation pathway in the Heaven's Path Divine Art, and his cultivation and strength slowly rose. Within 2 hours, he had already reached Dimension Sundering Realm Pinnacle, on the verge of making a breakthrough to the Macrocosm Ascendancy Realm. Knowing that pushing for a breakthrough would draw in the macrocosm ascendancy ordeal, and that would potentially cause devastating damage to the Zhong clan, he suppressed the sensation and turned his attention to his soul cultivation instead. Previously, through vicious memories, he had managed to obtain soul cultivation techniques up to Saint 9 Dan, but he had not been able to find suitable soul-related books to compile together with it to form Heaven's Path soul art manuals. However, when he met Lu Chong earlier, he had managed to obtain the soul cultivation techniques of the soul oracles from him, and that had allowed him to compile Heaven's Path soul art manuals all the way up to Saint 9 Dan. Since he had ample spirit stones in hand, it was a good opportunity for him to raise his soul cultivation all the way up to Saint 9 Dan. Chapter 1565 Great Sage Realm. He first placed the pinnacle spirit stones that Sword Saint Xing had given him into a spirit-gathering formation before drawing his soul out of his body. Focusing his attention, he began to absorb the surrounding spiritual energy as he drove his soul energy in accordance to the Heaven's Path soul art manuals. Jeji. His soul cultivation advanced at an incredible rate. With his soul depth rising to a level comparable to a 9-star pinnacle master teacher, he was able to exert extraordinary focus in his cultivation, thus significantly increasing his rate of cultivation. It might have taken him 2 hours in order to raise his cultivation by a single stage in the past, but now, he could do it within just an hour. Some time later, he finally opened up his eyes. With a light wave of his hand, a pitch-black rift appeared right before him. Not even space could withstand the powerful might wielded by his soul. It's a pity that soul traverse hasn't been perfected yet, so it isn't convenient for me to practice it. Zhong Xian shook his head in pity. Naturally, when Lu Chong imparted the heritage of the soul oracles to him, the secret art, soul traverse, had been among the heritage. However, it was a pity that it had far too many flaws for him to swallow, and his cultivation was also a little too low at the moment to cultivate it. Otherwise, if his soul could freely leap through space just like his student, his fighting prowess would be raised another notch. Of course, while the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters seemed to have reluctantly accepted the fact that he practiced the arts of the soul oracles, most cultivators on the Master Teacher continent were still a little apprehensive about soul oracles, so it would be best for him to avoid using such means in public. If not for Yang Shi's appearing at a timely moment and addressing him as senior, putting aside compensating him, the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters would still have been hounding him over his dabbling in poison and soul arts. Zhong Xian returned his soul to his body. Standing up once more, he lightly flicked his arm, and he could feel a furious torrent of power racing through his body, granting him much more strength than before. He flicked his finger lightly. Sila. A huge rift was torn open in the room, and any object that fell into the rift would be utterly eradicated. Zhong Xian nodded contentedly. It's still nowhere close to the power that I wielded after activating the Pavilion Master Seal, but ordinary Saint 9 Dan cultivators should no longer be a match for me. In fact, I should be able to put up a decent fight against the first elder of the Glacier Plain Court, Yu Ruoxin. This time, he had managed to advance his zhenqi and soul cultivation considerably, and with the combined prowess of the two, even half-great sages would have trouble dealing with him. With this, he could already be considered one of the top cultivators on the Master Teacher continent. Alright, I should try to raise the cultivation of the Netherworld Azure Dragon Beast and the Inferno Chileen now. Those two saint beasts had been put through great suffering while trying to protect him, and this was especially so for the latter. In the earlier battle, the Inferno Chileen had been captured by Zhong Wuheng, and if not for the sudden change in his identity to the young prodigy of the Zhong clan, it might very well have lost its life. Given that the first elder had been imprisoned, it went without saying that the Inferno Chileen had been returned to him. Zhong Xian released the two of them and bestowed them with a couple of grade 9 pills. Under the nourishment of the medicinal energy within the pills, the Inferno Chileen recovered swiftly from its injuries. It was not able to push for a breakthrough, but it did manage to reinforce its cultivation further, and from the looks of it, it would not be long before it overcame its Saint 9 Dan bottleneck and pushed for higher realm. On the other hand, with the nourishment of the grade 9 pills and Zhong Xian's guidance, the Netherworld Azure Dragon Beast managed to advance its cultivation from Saint 9 Dan primary stage to Saint 9 Dan pinnacle within just a single night. In terms of strength, It would not pale too far in comparison to the Inferno Chiline. By the time Zhongxian was done with this, the sun had already risen in the east. Stretching his back lazily, he pushed open his door to walk out of his room, only to see that Sword Saint Xing was already waiting in the courtyard. "It's about time for us to pay respects to the ancestors. Let's head over," Sword Saint Xing said. Suddenly, his eyebrows shot up as he took a closer look at his son, and a moment later, he exclaimed excitedly, "Your cultivation." The last time that he had seen his son's cultivation had only been at Dimension Sundering Realm primary stage. Yet, in the span of a night, his cultivation had grown so powerful that even Saint Nine Dan cultivators would have trouble fighting against it. "I managed to achieve a breakthrough last night, but it was just a fluke," Zhongxian explained. Fluke. Sword Saint Xing's lips twitched upon hearing that word. When he fought against his son the day before, the latter had exerted strength surpassing even that of his own. Initially, he had thought that his son was really that strong, but very soon, he had realized that the latter had used some kind of secret art to artificially inflate his strength. He had been worried that there might be some side effects as a result of using the secret art, but from the looks of it, he had been worrying needlessly. Not only had his son's cultivation not declined, it had improved by leaps and bounds instead. It was really a wonder how his son cultivated to improve so quickly. "Try hitting me. I want to see how powerful you are without relying on your secret art," Sword Saint Xing said. Very well. Knowing that his strength would be insufficient to phase his father without relying on the Pavilion Master Seal, Zhongxian had no intention of holding back. Taking a deep breath, he sent a punch out with his full might. Boom! The space in front of him collapsed as a formidable shockwave rippled into the surroundings. Sword Saint Xing's eyebrows shot upward in astonishment as he raised his palm to halt Zhongxian's punch. Who? He managed to dissipate the force of Zhongxian's punch, but at the same time, he was forced to retreat a step in order to ward off the impact of the punch. Impressed, he could not help but remark, "Your strength doesn't pale in comparison even to introspective convalescence realm experts." Introspective convalescence realm? Zhongxian asked doubtfully. Having reached Saint Nine Dan, you should have become acutely aware that Saint Nine Dan isn't the endpoint to cultivation. Above Saint, there's Great Sage. Sword Saint Xing explained. UN. Zhongxian nodded. He had heard Yangsha speak of this matter in the past, but he was not too aware of the details. There are 9 dans to Fighter, Transcendent Mortal, and Saint. However, there are only 4 dans to Great Sage. Sword Saint Xing explained. The very first realm to Great Sage is the introspective convalescence realm. In the Saint realm, a cultivator develops their primordial spirit and physical body to the very limits, but this development often comes with some degree of imperfection. In the introspective convalescence realm, a cultivator separates their primordial spirit from their physical body and trims both of them carefully, achieving invulnerability to indisposition and infirmity. Those who have successfully reached this realm have their lifespan extended by 500 years, thus allowing them to live up to 1,500 years old. Ordinary saint experts would only have 1,000 years to their lifespan. While some might be able to live a little longer than that, it would not stray too far from that. However, if a cultivator was able to reach the introspective convalescence realm, they would be able to alleviate the aging process of their body, thus extending their lifespan to 1,500 years. 500 years might not seem too long, but with sufficient luck, a cultivator could potentially reach higher realms with this additional time. The realms in Great Sage are far more complex than those in Saint, so while there are only 4 cultivation stages in Saint realms, there are 6 cultivation stages in Great Sage realms. They are namely Primary Stage, Intermediate Stage, Advanced Stage, Pinnacle, Perfection, and Consummation. Each of these 6 stages is harder to scale than the last. In fact, there are some cultivators who require over 100 years to raise their cultivation a single stage. At the same time, a tremendous amount of spiritual energy is required as well. For this reason, Great Sage is a huge hurdle for one to overcome, and in history, very few cultivators have eventually made it to Ancient Sage. The punch that you executed earlier wields strength that is roughly on par with introspective convalescence realm primary stage cultivators. While it can't be said to be impressive among the powerhouses of the master-teacher continent, Without a doubt, none in the younger generation will be able to match your strength. Zhong Xian nodded in response. Curious about the realms of Great Sage, he could help but ask, the first realm of Great Sage is the introspective convalescence realm, but what about the second realm? The second realm is the aureate body realm, Sword Saint Xing said. Introspective convalescence grants one self-awareness through introspection, and the undefilable aureate body grants one everlasting divinity. Flames and ice will no longer be able to injure one, and ordinary wounds will recover swiftly without the use of pills. Through fully awakening his emperor's bloodline, your student, Yuan Dao, has reached such a realm. Chapter 1566 Engagement, Of course, the term aureate body is just figurative language, Sword Saint Xing explained. One's body and physical body will grow far more resilient than before, almost as if diamond, impermeable to water or flames. Even if one travels through a teleportation formation without protection, one still won't be harmed by the spatial turbulence. Even when falling into spatial rifts, one will be able to walk out alive. On top of the frightening growth in strength and resilience, one will gain considerable resistance against soul arts as well. Demonic tunes and even the impartation of heavens won't be able to sway one easily anymore. The third realm of Great Sage is the intuitive impulse realm. To put it in simpler terms, it refers to an enigmatic sense toward danger or the unknown. It's rather similar to the ability that seers wield, but it's far more feasible to experts, especially in battle. Without using tortoise shells or copper coins, one will be able to intuitively sense impending calamities or fortune and select the most suitable course of action to take. Your mother and I have reached this realm. Last year, your soul lantern extinguished, but your mother and I could sense that you are still alive, and that's what drove us to continue searching for you. My soul lantern extinguished. Zhong Xian's lips twitched. The Zhong clan has my soul lantern. When did it extinguish? He had learned of soul lanterns from the books in the Sanctum of Sages. It was an artifact forged by weaving a sliver of an individual's soul in a unique manner. Usually, it would be located in a discreet location, placed under the care of special caretakers. The moment that the flame in the soul lantern was extinguished signified that the individual's soul had dissipated as well. It was typically used in most major powers so as to take note of the statuses of those who had left the clan. As such, it was not too surprising that he had a soul lantern, but the fact that it had extinguished. This was a matter worth looking into. Your mother and I feared that something would happen to you, so I created a soul lantern out of your soul right after you were born. As for when it extinguished, it was at the start of the 9th month last year, Sword Saint Xing said. Zhong Xian's eyelids twitched a little upon hearing the date. The start of the 9th month last year. That happened to be around the time that he transcended to this world, the start of a new semester in the Tianxian Kingdom's Hongtian Academy. Did his soul dissipate before I transcended over or when I possessed his body? Zhong Xian could not help but wonder a little. However, there was no point speculating about the past anymore, so he simply shook his head and dropped that thought. What's the fourth realm? Zhong Xian asked. The fourth realm is the pinnacle of Great Sage, as well as the level that Yangsha has reached. It's known as the sempiternal realm. Sempiternal encompasses the idea of deathlessness, but it's with reference not to the flesh but to the primordial spirit. No external force will be able to sway one's mental state, and with a mere thought, one is not only able to kill but tear space apart as well. Only one who has reached this realm can be considered invincible beneath ancient sage. Sword Saint Xing remarked. Your mother and I have been searching for an impetus to achieve a breakthrough to that realm, but it's a pity that we haven't been able to succeed. Introspective convalescence, aureate body, intuitive impulse, and sempiternal. Zhong Xian committed the names of those 4 realms to memory. He was not too sure about the latter 3, but he had definitely felt the power of the sempiternal realm back when he activated the droplet of blood from the Pavilion Master Seal. He had felt absolute power in his grasp, and with just a flick of his hand, he could easily have torn the world into pieces. There was nothing in this world that could possibly have endured his might. If even the sempiternal realm was that powerful, it was hard to imagine just how formidable ancient sage would be. All right, let's quickly leave. After explaining the 4 realms of Great Sage, Sword Saint Xing beckoned for them to set off before leading the way forward. The ancestor acknowledgement ritual was not too complicated. All of the elders of the Zhong clan, including those retired and in seclusion, had come to witness the ceremony. In the ancestral hall, an esteemed elder of the Zhong clan announced Zhong Xian's identity and history to the ancestors. Zhong Xian stood obediently in his allocated position, and the entire ceremony proceeded smoothly without any hiccups. It concluded right before noon, and Zhong Xian's name was inscribed onto the Zhong clan's genealogy book. Following that was the clan head inauguration ceremony. There were all kinds of formalities and conventions to be respected for this solemn event, making it both bothersome and frustrating. However, he also knew that it was of the utmost importance to respect these traditions. This was in line with the virtue of propriety that Kongsha had preached. It would be impossible to establish order and legitimacy without propriety, which made it ever so important in large powers like the Zhong clan. The ceremony lasted all the way till sunset before it finally concluded. With this, Zhong Xian had officially succeeded as the clan head, becoming the most authoritative figure in the Zhong clan. Phew, the ceremony is finally over. Son, we'll be heading to the Luo clan tomorrow to ask for the little princess's hand in marriage. Looking at the excellent man that his son had become, Sword Saint Xing could not help but feel satisfied within. Zhong Xian did not think that his parents would be so impatient as well, and he nodded helplessly. All right. The truth was that he was also feeling a little apprehensive inside. Everything seemed to be proceeding so smoothly that he was starting to fear that it was all a dream. Sword Saint Xing walked up to Yang Shi and clasped his fist with a smile. Yang Shi, I hope that you can follow us to the Luo clan as well and bear witness to this joyous event. My senior is going to be wedded, it goes without saying that I have to tag along. Yang Shi stroked his beard. The second celestial master teacher in the world was going to marry the little princess of the Luo clan. This was a historic event that he could not afford to miss. The night passed in surprising silence. This time, Zhong Xian chose to have a good sleep to reinvigorate himself instead of cultivating. As soon as dawn settled in, a huge crowd had already gathered around the conference hall of the Zhong clan. All sorts of items and artifacts were loaded upon 40 massive saint beasts, producing a sight of majesty and extravagance. Isn't this a little too grand? Zhong Xian was taken aback. How can it not be grand? This is the wedding ceremony of the clan head of our Zhong clan. If there isn't at least this much, it would poorly reflect on us as the number one sage clan. Sword Saint Xing replied haughtily. Beside him, Sword Saint Meng nodded with a ravishing smile on her face, reminiscent of a blooming flower. She was surprisingly quiet despite the matter at hand. Looking at the heavily loaded saint beasts, Zhong Xian asked with a doubtful frown, how far away is the Luo clan? The master-teacher continent was vast, such that even when one was riding on saint beasts, a journey could easily take several days or even months. If the destination was too far away, it might be better for him to construct a teleportation formation so that they could head there right away. Why? Just a few days of absence, and you are already in a rush to meet your little girlfriend? Sword Saint Xing teased playfully. That's not it. Zhong Xian's face reddened in embarrassment. The Zhong clan and the Luo clan aren't located too far away from one another. We specially prepared these aerial spirit beasts beforehand, and they are all at Saint Nine Dan. If they fly at their full might, we should be able to reach our destination within 3 days, so there's no need to get anxious. Seemingly seeing through Zhong Xian's thoughts, Sword Saint Meng added with a smile, while a teleportation formation will allow us to get to the Luo clan much faster, we'll have to pay an astronomical price in order to teleport this many resources and saint beasts over. On top of that, the journey there is also a symbol of sincerity on our part, and it serves to inform the world of the matrimony between the Zhong clan and the Luo clan. It's a formality that we have to respect so as to not sully the reputation of both the Zhong clan and the Luo clan. I understand. Zhong Xian nodded. In any case, it was only a 3-day journey, so there was no real need to use the teleportation formation. He was not so impatient as to be unable to wait 3 days. All right, let's set off then. Since everyone was already present, Sword Saint Xing gave a command, and the saint beasts rose into the air. Zhong Xian and his parents got onto the saint beast at the very front of the formation, and just like that, the magnificent marriage convoy began making its way toward the Luo clan. Chapter 1567 The secret behind the marriage of the Zhong clan and the Luo clan. Chilling wind battered ceaselessly on the convoy of the Zhong clan. It was already in the midst of winter. While it was not as chilling as the usual weather at the glacier plain court, most of the mountains were already cloaked with a thick layer of snow. Placed along with the white clouds in the air, it formed a mystical scenery of beauty. Zhong Xian stood in the room at the back of the aerial Saint Beast, frowning. Unable to hold back his curiosity anymore, he turned to the Xingmeng sword saints and asked, "What's the reason behind the engagement between the Zhong clan and the Luo clan? Since I'm the clan head now, I should know of it as well, right?" Initially, Zhong Xian had thought that his parents' impatience had stemmed from wanting to see him settle down, but after flying for some time, he could not help but feel that something was amiss. Of the items carried by the 40 aerial Saint Beasts, there were pills, artifacts, secret manuals, beast skin, inner cores. There was basically everything that a cultivator would ever need. Even with the Zhong clan's fortune, it was not something that could be prepared on the spur of a moment. The only possibility was that they had already prepared it in advance. Of course, that was to be expected. After all, they even held the tournament back at the Zhong clan to find someone to marry the little princess in his place. However, this served to remind him of how adamant the Zhong clan and the Luo clan were in pushing this marriage forward. Putting this together with what he had heard from Luo Shenqing a while back, about how determined the elders of the Zhong clan and the Luo clan were in realizing the marriage, he would have to be fool not to realize that something was amiss. Furthermore, he had barely reunited with his parents. Surely his parents would not want to send him away so quickly. Hearing his son's question, a hesitant look surfaced on Sword Saint Xing's face. It was clear that his son had already guessed something, and it would be impossible to hide it from him any longer. "I told you that we shouldn't hide it from our son, but you just wouldn't listen. Given how smart my Xian'er is, how could he possibly not figure it out?" Sword Saint Meng harumphed coldly. Turning to Zhong Xian, she scoffed impatiently. "The Zhong clan and the Luo clan's arrangement is for mankind or whatever nonsense. For mankind? What does the marriage with the Luo clan have to do with mankind?" Zhong Xian was even more confused. It was just a marriage between him and Luo Ruoxin. Surely it would be exaggerating to say that the whole of mankind would be affected by their marriage. Let me tell him instead. The previously silent Yang Shi suddenly sighed deeply and spoke up. Yuan, seeing that Yang Shi was going to speak, the Xingmeng sword saints nodded before falling silent. "The bloodline ability of the Zhong clan is time, whereas the bloodline ability of the Luo clan is space," Yang Shi said. "Senior, I believe you should be very familiar with this, right?" Zhong Xian nodded in response. He had been surprised by it at the start, but after witnessing it so many times, he had already gotten used to it. Those two abilities come together to form the power of space-time, and this power is the key to unlocking the seal of the Temple of Confucius. Yang Shi revealed. The seal of the Temple of Confucius? According to legend, in order to access the area where the Great Codex of Spring and Autumn is sealed, on top of the celestial amulets of legacy required, one must also wield the power of space-time. However, this is an ability that only the strongest of ancient sages wield. Yang Shi explained. However, it's a pity that no one has been able to achieve a breakthrough to ancient sage over the past 10,000 years. The few living ancient sages are also reaching the limits of their lifespan, such that while they are still capable of fighting short battles, it would be difficult for them to decipher the flow of spacetime in order to break the seal. More importantly, it seems that ancient sage experts might not be able to enter the depths of the Temple of Confucius. Zhong Xian was bewildered. If ancient sages are banned from entering the depths of the Temple of Confucius, why did Kong Shi create a seal that requires one to wield the power of spacetime to decipher it? What in the world was Kong Shi intending to do? It was one thing for Kong Shi to place the Great Codex of Spring and Autumn in the Temple of Confucius instead of handing it over to mankind, but he had even created an insurmountable obstacle for challengers to overcome. Was he really intending for mankind to obtain the Great Codex of Spring of Autumn? Alas, Kong Shi had already long passed on, so it was impossible for them to fathom his thoughts anymore. Yangsha shook his head and said, I don't know the details either. Due to the seal placed in the Temple of Confucius, even if we gather all of the celestial amulets of legacy, we still won't be able to access the great codex of spring and autumn. However, if we fuse the bloodlines of the Zhong clan and the Luo clan together, it might just be possible to pull it off. Fuse the bloodlines of the Zhong clan and the Luo clan? If both bloodlines can be perfectly fused together, one will be able to harness the power of space-time that usually only the most pinnacle ancient sage could wield. Yangsha explained. It's for this reason that you were engaged to the little princess of the Luo clan even before the both of you were born. No matter what happens, the marriage has to go through. But I have already lost my Zhong clan bloodline. Even if I marry the little princess now, it would be futile. Not expecting to hear such a story before the engagement, Zhongxian widened his eyes in alarm. As mankind slowly lost its ancient sages, the tables would gradually turn in favor of the otherworldly demonic tribe. As such, this made obtaining the great codex of spring of autumn of utmost importance to mankind. This matter could determine the very survival of mankind. As such, even the Master-Teacher Pavilion was pushing this matter forward. But considering that he had already lost his Zhong clan's bloodline and his grasp over the law of time was still rather elementary, even if he were to marry Luo Ruoxin, it would not help at all. You might have already lost your Zhong clan bloodline, but the fact that you once possessed it means that your body carries the aptitude for it. As long as the Zhong clan bloodline is infused back into your veins once more, you should be able to wield its power easily, so there's no need to worry about that. Besides, the mutual feelings between you and the little princess will allow for greater synergy in your collaboration, making it easier for the two of you to produce the power of space-time. Without a doubt, the two of you are the ideal candidates for this matter, Yangsha affirmed with a smile. There was still one more thing that he had neglected to mention, and that was the fact that Zhongxian was a celestial master teacher. Kongsha had been a celestial master teacher as well, so while others might have difficulties obtaining the great codex of spring and autumn, Zhongxian might just be able to pull it off. For this reason, even though the Zhong clan had already found an individual who possessed even purer Zhong clan bloodline than Zhongxian, he was still more supportive of having Zhongxian marry the little princess. I'll be able to use the abilities of the Zhong clan bloodline just by having it infused back into me? Zhongxian asked in bewilderment. He could understand how the chemistry between him and Luo Ruoxin would allow for a more harmonious collaboration between the two of them, but the notion of being able to use the abilities of the Zhong clan just by having their bloodline infused into him sounded a little ridiculous. It's true that your Zhong clan bloodline has been torn away from your body, but this can also be said to be a blessing in disguise. You won't be limited by your bloodline, thus granting you the potential to exceed the founder of the Zhong clan. Yangsha explained. Inheriting a unique bloodline is similar to inheriting the lineage of the predecessors. It grants one an incomparable advantage when it comes to intrinsic talent, but there is also a fatal flaw to it: one will be limited by one's bloodline. It will be far more difficult for one to surpass the level of one's predecessor as compared to an ordinary cultivator. Furthermore, the purer one's bloodline is, the greater the bottleneck will be. This. Zhongxian widened his eyes in realization. To make an analogy, a unique bloodline would be equivalent to walking down a safe pathway that one's predecessors had already paved in advance. However, the downside of walking down an established pathway was that one would not know where one could safely advance toward once one reached the end of the pathway. Perhaps, the pathway might not even be suitable. Under such circumstances, it would be nigh impossible to go any further than one's predecessor. A thought suddenly came to Zhongxian's mind. Could this be why Kong Shi was afflicted with the innate fetal poison? The purpose was not to heal an ancient sage but to surpass the predecessors. The reason the innate fetal poison was so little known on the master-teacher continent was likely due to how inefficient it was as a poison. After all, there were far more convenient and certain poisons to kill an infant as opposed to the innate fetal poison, so it was more likely that Kongsha had planted it for its other purpose, substitution of bloodline. Previously, he had been wondering what reasons there were to tear away Kongsha's bloodline and afflict him with the innate fetal poison, and this could very well be the case. After all, Kongsha did manage to achieve what others failed in, surpassing all that came before him. Back then, Sword Saint Meng suddenly interjected with reddened eyes, the reason I agreed to having your bloodline torn out was because they promised me that nothing would happen to you and that you might even get an opportunity to strive for greater heights. Chapter 15 6800 Schools of Philosophers. Sword Saint Meng had little care about the greater good of mankind or anything of the sort. What really mattered to her was just those whom she cared about, and if anyone dared to hurt her precious child, she would pit her life against that person. The reason she had eventually relented was due to those words reassuring her. As a mother, it was inevitable that she would bear great ambitions for her child's future. With Yang She volunteering to assist in the process and her husband reassuring all of her fears, she had eventually caved in. Otherwise, given her strength, no matter how powerful Hu Yiwei was, there was no way he could possibly have planted the innate fetal poison in her successfully. Knowing how difficult it would have been for his mother to make such a decision back then, Zhongxian sighed deeply within. Shaking his head, he turned his gaze back to Yang She and said, I still don't really get how infusing the Zhong clan bloodline back into my body would allow me to use its abilities easily. Pardon me, it seems like I have accidentally strayed off topic. As you used to possess the purest Zhong clan bloodline, you still wield the innate ability to activate the Zhong clan bloodline. As long as you have sufficient blood essence of the Zhong clan bloodline, you will be able to use its bloodline ability without burning your own bloodline. Naturally, that means that there won't be the 1-month downtime for you after activating the bloodline ability, Yang She explained. While activating the unique bloodline would grant one a temporary surge of power, it would also severely deplete one's vitality and zhenqi afterward, resulting in a month's downtime afterward. However, those who had once had their bloodline torn out would not face such a limitation as they would be using the bloodline of others. As long as they had sufficient blood essence on hand, they could raise their cultivation freely. Zhongxian's eyes lit up in agitation. If that was really true, this could become another major trump card of his. It's too early for you to get happy. Your bloodline previously was simply too pure, such that there's hardly anyone in the clan who has bloodline that can match yours. After gathering all the blood essence that we could within the clan and refining it again and again in order to raise its purity, we only managed to squeeze out 3 droplets. Even if there isn't any downtime afterward, you must make sure to use them sparingly, Sword Saint Xing said as he flicked his hand, and a jade bottle flew over. I understand. Holding the jade bottle tightly in his hand, Zhongxian could feel the rich power harnessed within the 3 blood droplets inside. Without a doubt, Zhong clan must have paid a heavy price in order to refine these 3 droplets. He was about to thank Sword Saint Xing when a thought suddenly struck him. The Pavilion Master Seal had also been created through 3 droplets of Kongsha's blood, and by assimilating them into his body, he would be able to temporarily wield power invincible against those beneath Ancient Sage. Was this not identical to the situation with the blood droplets from the Zhong clan? Could it be that Kongsha had some kind of unique bloodline, and the prerequisite to activating the bloodline was being a celestial master teacher? Zhongxian nodded. That does seem likely to be the case. It was no wonder no one had been able to truly tame the Pavilion Master Seal in the tens of thousands of years since Kongsha had left the Master Teacher continent. Limited by their constitution, it was already formidable that they could wield 1/10 of its power. It said that one must collate all 6 celestial amulets of legacy in order to enter the Temple of Confucius. May I know how many of them we have at the moment? Zhongxian suddenly asked. Back then, the Qingtian Emperor had paid a heavy price to sneak onto the Master Teacher continent in order to find one of the celestial amulets of legacy, but even after searching for countless years, his efforts had still been rendered futile. Zhongxian could not help wondering how many of them the Master Teacher Pavilion had found to date. Of the 6 celestial amulets of legacy, the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters has 1, the Zhong clan has 1, and the Luo clan has 1. As for the remaining 3, some say that Kongsha sealed them beneath some mountain in the world, and others say that they were taken away by the 100 schools of philosophers. In any case, even with the influence of the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters, I'm afraid that their whereabouts still remain a mystery to date. Yang She shook his head. 100 schools of philosophers? Zhongxian frowned doubtfully. He had heard of the 3 premier clans and the 5 element sage clans, but what was the 100 schools of philosophers? Kongsha took in 3,000 students and 72 direct disciples, and these 72 direct disciples were all ancient sage expert. Yang Shi said. They were all ancient sages? Zhong Xian's breathing hastened in agitation. For all 72 direct disciples of his to be ancient sages. Just how powerful was mankind back then? It was no wonder that the otherworldly demonic tribe was so frightened of Kongsha, apprehensive of the rise of another celestial master teacher among mankind even after so many years. If another 72 ancient sages emerged among mankind, the tables could very well be turned. The reputation of the world's teacher was indeed not baseless. They have been conferred with the title of philosophers, and their descendants are collectively known as the 100 schools of philosophers. They disappeared soon after Kongsha disappeared from the world, which led to the rise of the Zhong clan and the Luo clan shortly after. Otherwise, if the 100 schools of philosophers were still around, even the master-teacher pavilion headquarters would have to defer to them. Yang Shi swiftly explained one of the ancient secrets of the history of mankind. Zhong Xian jolted in astonishment. Are the 100 schools of philosophers actually that powerful? While the master-teacher pavilion headquarters did suffer a setback due to him this time around, he knew full well that the waters ran far deeper in the master-teacher pavilion than what he was seeing. If their conflict had worsened, even with Zheng Yang, Wei Ruyan, and even the Zhong clan on his side, he still would not have stood a chance against the master-teacher pavilion. Without such strength, how could the master-teacher pavilion go unchallenged for the past tens of thousands of years? It was precisely out of deference for their strength that even the top experts of the continent were apprehensive of provoking them. For one, no one knew exactly how many hibernating ancient sages there were in the master-teacher pavilion headquarters. And despite the master-teacher pavilion's prowess, it was still afraid of the 100 schools of philosophers. They are the descendants of Kongsha's direct disciples. Other than their powerful bloodline, they also have the complete heritage of their predecessors. Given so, it might be difficult for the master-teacher pavilion to match them. Yang Shi shook his head. However, they disappeared from the master-teacher continent many years ago, so it's unlikely for them to appear once more. Thus, there's no need to worry about them. Zhong Xian nodded in response. Since they had disappeared just like Kongsha, there should be no need to worry about them. He pondered for a moment before asking once more, if the 3 remaining celestial amulets of legacy are missing, how do we enter the Temple of Confucius? Given that they had not even gathered all of the celestial amulets of legacy yet, were they not jumping ahead of themselves to push forward a marriage between the Zhong clan and the Luo clan at this point in time? Typically speaking, it's indeed true that it would be impossible for one to enter the Temple of Confucius without gathering all 6 celestial amulets of legacy. However, through years of research, the Master-Teacher Pavilion has managed to find a way to circumvent that requirement. Back then, Kongsha acquired the blood essences of 6 unique bloodlines in order to forge the 6 celestial amulets of legacy, so even if we fail to find the 3 remaining amulets, we can substitute them with the 3 fully awakened unique constitution. Yang Shi said while stroking his beard. Unique constitutions? Could the pure yin body be one of those unique constitutions? Zhong Xian widened his eyes in realization. Indeed, the pure yin body is one of the unique constitutions. Other than that, there's also the Poison Hall's innate poison body, the Yuan clan's emperor's bloodline, the Shui clan's true water constitution. As long as these unique constitutions are fully awakened, they can be used to substitute the amulet. Yang Shi replied with a nod. That's also the reason Yu Ruoxin was in such a rush to awaken Zhao Yue's unique constitution. As long as she succeeded, the Glacier Plain Court would have been able to enter the Temple of Confucius. The Temple of Confucius houses Kongsha's heritage, and the treasures and secret manuals found there will be unmatched by anything currently on the Master-Teacher continent. Without a doubt, the exploration of the Temple of Confucius will change the power dynamics on the Master-Teacher continent, and the powers who fail to enter the Temple of Confucius will find themselves swiftly falling behind those who do. And if, by any chance, the heritage falls into the hands of the otherworldly demonic tribe, it could very well spell the end of mankind. There was a good chance that the solution to achieving a breakthrough to ancient sage would be found in the Temple of Confucius as well, and that would be a turning point for many powers in the world. Who would be willing to give up on this opportunity? Do you still have any doubts in mind? Yang Shi asked. None at the moment, Zhong Xian replied with a shake of his head. For the time being, that was all he was perplexed about, and after Yang Shi's explanation, he had gained a good grasp of the situation. It was no wonder the Luo clan was so adamant about marrying Luo Ruoxin to the young prodigy of the Zhong clan. Considering that the Temple of Confucius was involved in this matter as well, her will alone would not be enough to change their mind. All right then. I'll be taking a rest for a moment. Seeing that Zhong Xian did not have any more doubts, Yang Shi sat down and closed his eyes, and Zhong Xian got to reinforcing his cultivation as well. 3 days passed in a flash. When morning came, as soon as the brilliant sun rose from the horizon, a massive city came into sight beneath the group. Sword Saint Xing walked over to the windows and exclaimed, "That's the Luo clan's shrouding ethereal city. We have finally arrived at our destination." Chapter 1569 Luo Shenqing visits shrouding ethereal city. Zhong Xian lowered his head and saw that the city below seemed to be hiding beneath an illusory space. The city was situated in the midst of a mountain range, shrouded by endless clouds, reminiscent of a labyrinth. Without knowing the way beforehand, it would be nigh impossible to find the shrouding ethereal city. What a formidable formation! Zhong Xian exclaimed. Similar to the Zhong clan's guardian formation, it's intended to protect the Luo clan in times of emergency. It harnesses the law of space, distorting one's sense of direction and thus entrapping one. Of course, this formation can't hope to keep us out. Sword Saint Xing chuckled as he flicked his wrist, and a mirror appeared before Zhong Xian. Looking through the mirror, one could clearly see the correct pathway to navigate through the formation. The formation was constantly changing, making it impossible for one to determine any fixed pattern to it. To be able to discern the correct pathway with just a glance, it seemed like his father was quite a skilled formation master. Is it our guests from the Zhong clan ahead? After advancing a while longer, a hearty chuckle suddenly echoed from the distance, followed by the appearance of several figures. The person standing at the forefront was the first elder of the Luo clan, Luo Qingchen. Indeed. Sword Saint Xing flew out of the room and greeted the elders of the Luo clan, and Zhong Xian and the others quickly followed suit. We have been waiting for your arrival. Our Luo clan has already prepared accommodations for you all, so do quickly come in. Luo Qingchen greeted with a smile as he led the way forward. The convoy of saint beasts from the Zhong clan quickly followed behind Luo Qingchen to enter the city. The accommodation that the Luo clan had prepared was a massive manor, vast and spacious. Even with 40 saint beasts landing in the courtyard, it did not appear to be cramped in the least. After settling the crowd from the Zhong clan into their accommodation, Luo Qingchen said with a warm smile, "I'll require some time to gather all of the elders and grand elders who have gone into seclusion, so let's discuss the details of the marriage tomorrow. The matrimony between our clans is a huge matter for the master-teacher continent, so we have to ensure that everything proceeds smoothly." Indeed, First Elder. This matter must be handled with the utmost care. Sword Saint Xing nodded politely in response. All right, I shan't impose on you all anymore. Please do have a good rest, and I'll see you tomorrow. Luo Qingchen clasped his fist and bade farewell. Before taking his leave, he instructed an elder to properly attend to the needs of the Zhong clan. So, this is Luo Ruoxin's clan? The layout of the guest rooms was particularly exquisite. All sorts of formations came together to form a massive spirit-gathering formation, artificially creating what could be considered a blessed land to a cultivator. Strolling around the massive manor, Zhong Xian could hardly curb the excitement in his heart. He had seen many beautiful ladies, and there were also a couple of them who harbored romantic feelings for him. However, there was only one who had truly moved his heart. As if a fine wine, his feelings for her only seemed to deepen with time. It was as if he was already intoxicated with her entire being, such that losing her was no longer something that he could imagine. Seeing her son walking impatiently around the manor, Sword Saint Meng walked up to him and teased, "What? Can't you even wait till tomorrow?" Her son was someone who could remain perfectly calm even while he was surrounded by the experts of the Master-Teacher Pavilion headquarters, yet at that moment, he was wandering around aimlessly. There was no way she would be so dense as to be unable to see through her son's thoughts. How could that be? I'm just taking a look around. Having his thoughts exposed, Zhongshen's face reddened in embarrassment. The marriage between the both of you will surely go through, so there's no need to worry about that. Besides, even if this engagement didn't exist, as long as it's a girl you fancy, I'd help you snatch her. Imagining the sight of his mother kidnapping Luo Ruoxin, a slight chuckle escaped from Zhongshen's lips. Given his mother personality, there was really a chance that she could pull something like that off. Just as he was about to speak, the Luo clan elder who was in charge of taking care of their needs suddenly walked up and reported, "Clan head Zhong, young master Shenqing hopes to meet you. Bring me over." Hearing that Luo Shenqing was in the Luo clan as well, Zhongshen's eyes lit up. He had thought that the other party would still be in the Sanctum of Sages, but who could have thought that he would have already returned? But thinking about it, given that his younger sister was going to be married, there was no way that he would obediently remain in the Sanctum of Sages. Given what a sister-doting monster he was, he would surely rush back to the Luo clan in the fastest time possible. Following behind the Luo clan elder, they soon arrived in the main hall. Luo Shenqing was seated with a teacup in his hand, deep in thought. Upon seeing Zhongshen, he quickly stood up, clasped his fist, and bowed. Luo Shenqing pays respect to clan head Zhong. "Brother Luo, you're too courteous." Seeing how formal Luo Shenqing was with him, Zhongshen quickly walked forward to help him up. Luo Shenqing raised his head to look at the young man before him once more, and he could not help but exclaim internally how swiftly things had changed. When they first met, the young man had just been an ordinary student in the Sanctum of Sages. It was only because he had found the young man's temperament to his liking that he had befriended the young man. When he found out that the young man had duped his younger sister of her feelings, he had flown into a rage, wanting to pummel him to death. But before he knew it, the young man had transformed into the young prodigy of the Zhong clan, the fiancé of his younger sister. Not only so, he had also become the head of the Sanctum of Sages, and every single one of his students was unimaginably powerful. No matter how many times he verified the news, he still found the matter hard to believe. Initially, when his younger sister told him that the fellow from the remote Hongyuan Empire was actually a remarkable genius, he had snorted in disdain, thinking that his younger sister was blinded by her feelings for the other party. However, from the looks of it now, the one who was truly blind was him. While Luo Shenqing was still deep in thought, he suddenly noticed the anomaly in the young man's cultivation, and he widened his eyes in astonishment. "Your cultivation? You have already reached Dimension Sundering Realm Pinnacle?" Just a few days ago, when he pummeled Zhongshen, the young man had only been at Phantasmal Space Realm Pinnacle. Yet, within this short period of time, the young man had already reached Dimension Sundering Realm Pinnacle. While he had never expressed it before others, the truth was that he took great pride at having reached Dimension Sundering Realm Primary Stage despite his young age. Yet, it was as if achieving breakthroughs came as easily to the young man as eating or drinking. Did the young man really have to be so exaggerated? "Ah, it was a stroke of luck," Zhongshen replied with a smile. "A stroke of luck." Luo Shenqing felt so stifled that he thought that he would suffer grievous internal injuries from talking with the young man at this rate. Each time he asked about the young man's cultivation, the latter would simply perfunctorily attribute it to luck. "Even though we all know that you are just making up an excuse, surely you can be more sincere than that. Would it kill you to think of a different line?" Luo Shenqing took in a deep breath and asked, "Clan head Zhong, may I have the honor of sparring with you?" Back when he first met the young man had only been a Saint 5 Dan minor figure, not even worthy of his attention. Within just 2 to 3 months, the young man had already surpassed him. While he knew that the young man was an incredibly talented individual, there was no one in the world who would dare underestimate the young prodigy of the Zhong clan. He was still unable to accept this reality. "Sure." Zhongshen nodded. He was also itching to try his hand since he had just made a breakthrough. Since Luo Shenqing had challenged him to a spar, there was no reason for him to turn him down. "Let's begin then." Without any hesitation, Luo Xianqing forcefully pushed against the ground and dashed forth, reaching Zhong Xian in the blink of an eye. He raised his hand and thrust his palm down upon the latter forcefully. Voila! Along with the movement of his palm, the surrounding space grew viscous, creating great inertia to any movement made in the area. While Zhong Xian had been pushing ahead, Luo Xianqing had not been slacking either. Through his diligence, he had also made considerable advancements in his fighting prowess. Come! With a chuckle, Zhong Xian drove his zhenqi as he raised his palm to clash against Luo Xuanqing's offense. But all of a sudden, his hand froze in midair. Seeing the young man's abrupt halt in actions, Luo Xianqing retracted his palm strike and harumphed coldly. What's wrong? Are you intending to go easy on me just because you think I'm no match for you? If you still think of me as a brother, use your full strength. He knew that it was unlikely for him to be a match for Zhong Xian, and he was prepared to accept his loss. However, his pride would not allow the latter to take pity and go easy on him. No, that's not it. Zhong Xian raised his hand to stop Luo Xianqing as his lips twitched frenziedly. I accidentally exerted too much force earlier. I think I am going to achieve a breakthrough soon. Hong long long. Before Zhong Xian could finish his words, the entire sky darkened. Storm clouds converged above the area, and flashes of lightning streaked furiously across the sky. Zhong Xian's macrocosm ascendancy ordeal had come. Chapter 1570. Scare it away. Back when Zhong Xian was still at the Zhong clan, he had already reached the peak of the dimension sundering realm, ready to push for a breakthrough to the macrocosm ascendancy realm at any moment. However, he feared the massive destruction that might come as a result of the lightning tribulation, so he had forcefully suppressed his cultivation. However, earlier, as he was sparring with Luo Xianqing, he had accidentally pushed his zhenqi a little too far, overcoming the bottleneck of the dimension sundering realm, causing his cultivation to begin advancing right for Saint Nindan macrocosm ascendancy realm. You can achieve a breakthrough just like that. Looking at the ominous clouds gathering all around and sensing the energy raging within the young man's body, Luo Xianqing nearly fainted on the spot. Weren't you still at dimension sundering realm pinnacle a moment ago? How in the world did you manage to make a breakthrough to the macrocosm ascendancy realm just by driving your zhenqi? Luo Xianqing nearly spurted blood from frustration. It was with the thought that Zhong Xian's cultivation might not be too stable due to his swift breakthroughs that he had dared challenge the young man to a duel. Yet, before the duel could even start, the young man had already achieved another breakthrough. In comparison, his rate of cultivation was as slow as a tortoise. No, more like a crawling snail. With such a contrast between the two of them, he no longer dared identify himself as a prodigy before others. Hong long long. As Luo Xianqing was still grumbling gloomily over the matter, the storm clouds in the sky were swiftly growing bigger and bigger, cloaking everything in their shadow. Before one knew it, the clouds already spanned tens of thousands of mu. Luo Xianqing gulped in fright as he turned his trembling body toward Zhong Xian and asked, Zhong Xian, are you here to ask for my younger sister's hand in marriage or to tear our Luo clan down? The young man's macrocosm ascendancy ordeal was simply too powerful. If it really fell, no matter how powerful the Luo clan's formations were, the formations would not stand a chance against it. Aren't you here to propose a marriage? But what you are bringing in over here could very well wipe out the entire Luo clan. I didn't do it on purpose. Should I try suppressing my cultivation? Zhong Xian exclaimed with a reddened face, showing a rare sign of panic. He had been suppressing his cultivation all this while, intending to find a quiet place to push for a breakthrough once everything had been settled. Who could have thought that he would make a mistake at this crucial moment and achieve a breakthrough? This wasn't what he had intended at all. Suppress your cultivation? Your cultivation ordeal is already right above you. Do you think suppressing your cultivation right now will work? Luo Xianqing roared furiously. Are you messing with me? Do you think that the cultivation ordeal will obediently disperse just because you have suppressed your cultivation back down? What you should be thinking of right now is how you can overcome this ridiculously powerful lightning tribulation. Even Saint Nindan experts wouldn't stand a chance against a lightning tribulation of this level. Are you really not frightened at all? Why you right? I have to scare the lightning tribulation away. But Zhongxian frowned in distress as he spoke. I don't think I'll be able to do it right now. His soul cultivation had already reached Saint Ninden Pinnacle, and he had not compiled the Saint Ninden Heaven's Path Divine Art to further his Junshi cultivation yet. On top of that, he had just cultivated his physical body a few days ago. What was he supposed to do with the massive pool of spiritual energy in the air? He would explode if he absorbed all of that. You won't be able to do it right now? What do you mean by that? Don't you have some kind of means to chase the lightning tribulation away? Luo Shenqing urged anxiously. Since his dimension-sundering ordeal had been chased away by the young man before him, surely the young man should be able to do the same for his own macrocosm ascendancy ordeal. I'll just say this clearly to you right here and right now. If you fail to chase away the lightning tribulation and it falls on the shrouding ethereal city, don't even dream of our Luo clan forgiving you. It goes without saying that your engagement with my younger sister will be over as well. Luo Shenqing spat in fury. This Zhongxian was really on the verge of tears. Why did he have to achieve a breakthrough now of all times? He had already raised all of his cultivations as far as he could, so there was nothing he would require spiritual energy for at the moment. And without absorbing the energy of the lightning tribulation, how was he supposed to scare it away? Wait a moment, perhaps I could try that. Knowing that the lightning would fall at any moment, and there was no time to be wasted, Zhongxian clenched his jaw and leaped into the air. He swiftly assumed a cold and forbidding appearance as he placed his arms behind his back, facing the lightning tribulation before him fearlessly. How can Shen'er's macrocosm ascendancy ordeal be so powerful? Dear, rest assured. Our son has managed to drive away several lightning tribulations in the past, so he should be able to do it easily this time around. This is a good opportunity to see what he's capable of. Yes, I have also heard the rumors as well. If I recall correctly, our son dove into the storm clouds, and before long, the storm clouds trembled uncontrollably before eventually dissipating. In the courtyard, the attention of the Xingmeng sword saints was captured by the unbelievably massive lightning tribulation in the air as well. However, recalling the previous deeds of their son, they reassured themselves and heaved sighs of relief. Their son had simply produced too many miracles, especially when it came to dealing with lightning tribulations. The legends that he had created were something that would eventually go down in the annals of the master-teacher continent's history, never to be forgotten even after many generations. As powerful as the macrocosm ascendancy ordeal before them was, he should be able to resolve it with ease. Look, he's flying into the air. He should be diving into the storm clouds very soon, Sword Saint Xing exclaimed excitedly. The first elder of the Luo clan, Luo Qingchen, turned to the elders behind him and instructed, "This is truly a rare sight, make sure to watch it closely. If we can figure out the secrets behind Zhongxian's technique, our Luo clan offspring won't have to worry about their cultivation ordeals when they achieve a breakthrough anymore." Yes. The many elders of the Luo clan nodded in agreement. Luo Qingchen had witnessed with his own eyes how the young man helped Luo Shenqing drive away his dimension-sundering ordeal, but back then, he had been unable to make sense of how it had been done. Since he had the privilege to witness it once more, he would really have to observe it closely. If they could learn the young man's secret art, the offspring of their Luo clan would not need to fear lightning tribulations anymore. Bring the dimension mirror over. I want this scene to be perfectly recorded. Luo Qingchen instructed once more. Even if we fail to make sense out of it now, we can slowly examine it later on. As long as we study it long enough, it will only be a matter of time before we uncover his secret. As a 9-star master teacher himself, Luo Qingchen's eye of discernment was not to be underestimated. Yet, even an expert of his caliber was unable to figure out how Zhongxian had managed to drive away Luo Xuanqing's lightning tribulation back then. Thus, there was a good chance that they would not be able to figure it out easily even with most elders of the Luo clan present here. Just to be safe, it would be best for them to record this sight so that they could refer to it again and again in the future. That's a good idea. An elder swiftly flew away, and it did not take him long to return with a massive mirror in hand. It was one of the mystical artifacts from the Luo clan's treasure vault, the dimension mirror. It could be used to record anything that it saw. He's going to dash into the lightning tribulation. Right after the elders had finished preparing the mirror, Luo Qingchen's excited exclamation sounded in the air. Turning their gazes over, the elders saw the young man rising into the air, stopping right beneath the storm clouds. Everyone watched the scene with bated breath. They could not wait to see how the legendary young prodigy of the Zhong clan would deal with the lightning tribulation. Hong Long Long. Provoked by Zhong Xian's approach, the lightning tribulation crackled wrathfully, threatening to annihilate everything beneath it. Facing the imposing lightning tribulation before him, Zhong Xian's heart could not help but shudder in dread. Nevertheless, he did not allow it to show on his face. With a perfectly composed expression, he said, "Little Leilei, we meet again, Hong Long." Upon hearing that voice, the lightning tribulation seemed to fall into a daze, such that the thunderous rumbling appeared to have toned down a little. "Stop kicking up a needless fuss. I'll give you a chance. Scram before I fly into a rage." Zhong Xian snorted impatiently. Boom. The lightning tribulation seemed to have fallen even quieter. It was hard to tell if they were overthinking it, but the crowd witnessing this scene felt as if the lightning tribulation was trembling in fright, seemingly fearful of the young man before it. Seeing that the lightning tribulation was still refusing to leave, Zhong Xian's voice grew even sharper and colder. "I am not a patient person, so you'd better quickly make up your mind whether you want to cross me or not. However, you should know that I'm not one to give second chances, so I hope that you won't make a decision you'll regret." Boom. After a moment of hesitation, the lightning tribulation seemed to have made the greatest decision in its life, and it released an indignant rumble. Voila! Following which, it turned around and took flight. In the blink of an eye, it had already disappeared without a trace. Earlier, when the ominous clouds set in, everyone had thought that the end of the world had come. But in the blink of an eye, a clear sky had been returned to them, leaving no trace of the impending calamity from earlier. The heck? This works as well. It's possible to scare away the lightning tribulation with words. When did the lightning tribulation become such an easy existence to deal with? Luo Qingchen and the others were shocked beyond words. Lei means lightning, and Lei is a terribly cute nickname for someone. Chapter 1571 Unforeseen Circumstances 1. Lightning tribulations were the world's punishment toward cultivators for getting ahead of themselves. There was no cultivator who was not fearful of lightning tribulations. Even someone as powerful as Luo Qingchen would turn pale in the face of a lightning tribulation, requiring much preparation before he dared clash with it. Yet, this young man had simply crushed all of their expectations. Everyone had thought that he would utilize some kind of formidable technique in order to chase away the lightning tribulation, but who would have thought, with just a simple reprimand and threat, the lightning tribulation actually backed off in fear. No cultivator on the master-teacher continent could have imagined that such a thing would actually be possible. Was this still the lightning tribulation that they knew of? "Have you recorded it?" "We have recorded it, but will we really be able to learn something like this?" An elder's apprehensive voice sounded from behind. "It's unlikely." Luo Qingchen shook his head and sighed. If any of them dashed right up to the lightning tribulation and spouted such words, they would be reduced to cinders in the blink of an eye. Such an action was as good as challenging the authority of the heavens. Yet, despite his brazen actions, the young man had actually walked away from the ordeal unharmed. Could he actually not be the son of the Xingmeng sword saints but the illegitimate son of the heavens themselves? Phew, I managed to overcome this hurdle. Zhong Xian heaved a sigh of relief. It was fortunate that he had already traumatized the lightning tribulation through his past experiences with it. Otherwise, if the lightning tribulation had really fallen, he would have been in deep trouble. Returning to the ground, Zhong Xian walked up to Luo Shenqing and smiled. "All right, I have driven off the macrocosm ascendancy ordeal. Let's continue our fight." Luo Shenqing felt a prickling sensation on his scalp. "Continue your head. How can an ordinary mortal like me possibly fight against someone who could scare off a lightning tribulation with just words? Isn't that asking for a beating? Forget it. It would be impolite for me to lay my hands on a guest like you." Luo Shenqing hurriedly shook his head vehemently. He had already made up his mind. From that day forth, he would no longer compare himself with the inhuman freak before him. Hearing that Luo Shenqing was unwilling to fight with him anymore, Zhongxian sighed in disappointment. A moment later, he raised his head and looked at Luo Shenqing expectantly. Then, "Brother Luo, can you bring me to meet your younger sister?" With what he desired finally within reach, he could no longer retain his usual composure. Knowing that his younger sister was the only edge that he had against Zhongxian at the moment, Luo Shenqing waved his hand in feigned impatience. "You'll meet during the engagement ceremony tomorrow. You can at least wait one more day, right?" Zhongxian shook his head helplessly. "All right then." Seeing that Zhongxian was really disappointed, a playful smile emerged on Luo Xuanqing's face as he asked, "Do you really want to meet her?" He was delighted to see Zhongxian's disappointment, not just for his personal vengeance but for his younger sister as well. After all, this meant that his younger sister carried significant weight in Zhongxian's heart. Of course. Zhongxian quickly nodded. "Well, I guess it can't be helped if that's the case," Luo Shenqing said. "I can arrange for a secret meeting with my younger sister for you, but just for a short moment, all right?" The real reason he had come here to find Zhongxian was to test the latter's feelings for his younger sister, as well as to allow the two lovebirds to have a short meeting prior to the engagement. Without a doubt, he was certain that Zhongxian really harbored feelings for his younger sister. Given so, it would be pointless for him to make things difficult for the latter. While it was a breach of propriety for the couple to meet privately just ahead of the engagement, rules were ultimately just rules. Even if they were caught, the elders of both clans would only shrug it off as the recklessness of youth and turn a blind eye to it. Besides, the young man before him was not only the young prodigy and clan head of the Zhong clan but the head of the Sanctum of Sages and Yangshi's senior. Is this for real? Zhongxian's face immediately lit up in happiness. Of course, when have I ever not meant my word? Luo Shenqing harumphed impatiently. "Wait here for a moment, I'll go make some arrangements." Zhongxian anxiously nodded in response. Just as he was about to thank Luo Shenqing for his help, an elder of the Zhong clan suddenly rushed into the main hall. "Clan head, what's wrong?" Zhongxian frowned upon seeing the grim look on the elder's face. "We have just received news that Court Chief Zhao and Hall Master Wei of the Glacier Plain Court and Poison Hall have gone missing," the elder reported anxiously. "Missing?" Zhongxian's heart skipped a beat upon hearing those words, and he abruptly rose to his feet. Narrowing his eyes coldly, he questioned, "What do you mean by that? What happened?" I don't know. It appears that there was some kind of fight, then the both of them suddenly went missing. The Zhong clan has already dispatched some men to investigate the issue," the elder reported. After fully awakening her unique constitution, Zhao Yue is able to stand her ground even against great sage experts. On the other hand, Wei Ruyan's poison is able to curb even Pavilion Master Ren Qingyuan. Yet, the two of them actually went missing? Did they not even have any time to send out a help message? Zhongxian clenched his fists tightly in disbelief. Even when Zhao Yue was captured by Yu Ruoxin back then, she had still been able to find an opportunity to send a message to him asking for help. Just who in the world had the ability to make the two of them vanish, such that they could not even afford to send a help message to him? "I'm afraid I don't know," the elder shook his head fearfully. Zhongxian took in a deep breath to calm himself down before instructing, "Do you know where the battle occurred? Bring me over to take a look." The Zhong clan's intelligence was unlikely to be inaccurate. Chances were that something had really happened to Zhao Yue and Wei Ruyan, so there was no time for him to be idling around. If he wanted to know what had happened, he would have to drop by the area personally. Otherwise, it could already be too late by the time the others were able to get to the bottom of the matter. The elder nodded in response. The battle occurred in the vicinity of the Empire Alliance. Court Chief Zhao and Hall Master Wei were on their way back after resolving the issue that day when something happened to them. In the vicinity of the Empire Alliance. Very well. After confirming the location, Zhongxian turned to Luo Shenqing and clasped his fist apologetically. "Brother Luo, Knowing that this matter was far more important, Luo Shenqing nodded in understanding. "Don't worry, you should hurry over to investigate the situation. If there's anything that I can help you with, feel free to contact me. Thanks. Zhongxian walked out to the courtyard and took out the grade 9 formation flags that his mother had given him. It did not take him too long to construct a teleportation formation. Xian'er, I'll come with you. Seemingly having heard of the matter as well, Sword Saint Meng suddenly rushed over. Don't worry, your father and Yang Shi are here, so they will be able to handle matters here promptly. I don't feel too assured leaving you on your own. If anything happens on the other side, at least I'll be able to cover you. Most preparations for the engagement had been prepared, and Sword Saint Xing and Yang Shi were around to settle whatever administrative matters there were, so there should not be any problems on their end. UN. Zhongxian nodded. While he had managed to achieve a breakthrough to Saint Nine Dan, it was still a little difficult for him to activate the teleportation formation with his current strength. Thus, it would indeed be helpful to have his mother tagging along. Let's go. Having made up their minds, the duo swiftly got to action. With Sword Saint Meng infusing her strength into the teleportation formation, it soon shone into activation. Who? The duo vanished simultaneously from the spot. The next moment, they were already in the vicinity of the Empire Alliance. According to the directions from the 8th Elder, it should be over there. Sword Saint Meng quickly scanned the surroundings and pointed in a direction. Swiftly advancing ahead, it did not take the two of them too long to arrive at the foot of a mountain. This mountain had been forcefully sliced in half by some formidable force, and the greenery on it had been completely destroyed. From this, it could be seen that an earth-shattering battle had occurred not too long ago. Zhongxian clenched his fists tightly together. There was a layer of frost over the entire area. Without a doubt, it had been left by Zhao Yue. At the same time, the plants in the area had taken on a dark yellow shade, a sign that they had been poisoned to death. From the looks of it, that seemed to be Wei Ruyan's doing. Initially, Zhongxian had thought that they had been taken down separately, but contrary to his expectations, the two of them had actually been fighting side by side when they were subdued. Just who in the world wielded such tremendous power? Putting aside the Zhong clan and the Luo clan, probably even the Master-Teacher Pavilion headquarters would not be able to take those two away discreetly. Could it be that otherworldly demonic emperor? Zhongxian's eyes narrowed in astonishment. Chapter 1572 Unforeseen Circumstances 2. In terms of prowess, Zhao Yue and Wei Ruyan were still far beneath Yang Shi. Nevertheless, due to their unique abilities, in a real battle, even Yang Shi would have much difficulty dealing with them. But despite their strength, they were still unable to send a signal for help before they were taken away. Unless it was him with the Pavilion Master Seal activated or an ancient sage personally making a move, he could not think of anyone who could pull this off. Eye of Insight. Zhongxian swiftly scanned the surroundings. A moment later, a frown appeared on his forehead as his face turned livid. There isn't any trace of it all. The Eye of Insight had never failed him before, but at that very moment, it was not working. In the past, as long as he observed close enough, he would be able to find something amiss. However, no matter how he squinted, he could not find any traces of the assailant or the trail of his students. It was almost as if they had evaporated on the spot. Those two students of yours are considerably powerful. For the assailant to be able to kidnap them without leaving any trace behind, it must be a formidable foe. Sword Saint Meng remarked grimly. Could it be the doing of the otherworldly demonic tribe? Zhongxian asked. The killing intent that otherworldly demons emanate is too powerful for it to be concealed entirely. Since there isn't any trace of their killing intent here, it stands to reason that it shouldn't be their doing. However, if the culprit is an ancient sage otherworldly demon, that might not hold anymore, Sword Saint Meng replied. Ancient sage? Zhongxian's complexion turned terribly awful. While he did have some conflict with the Master-Teacher Pavilion, they had already been resolved. It was unlikely that the Master Teachers would do something as ignoble as getting back at him through his students afterward. As for the other powers, the only way that they could nab his students was to mobilize their ancient sages. However, the human ancient sages did not have much time left, so to awaken them just to capture his students, the notion did not seem too probable. Thus, that made the otherworldly demonic emperor the most likely culprit. Noticing her son's agitation, Sword Saint Meng quickly stepped forward and took charge of the situation. Calm down, let's check the area once more. We might be able to find something. The most important thing that we have to do right now is confirm whom the culprit is and whether your students are in any danger. Zhong Xian nodded in response. It was hard to remain rational when it came to something that affected one. Instead of panicking, the most important thing at hand was indeed to confirm if the two of them were safe. So, they went through every single detail that could be found in the vicinity, checking every nook and cranny carefully. Did you manage to find anything? Sword Saint Meng asked. Zhong Xian shook his head. The culprit is either very skilled in concealing their tracks or they really vanished into thin air, leaving nothing behind at all. What about you? The person who had nabbed Zhao Ya and Wei Ruyan had utilized some kind of unfathomable means that rendered even the Eye of Insight useless in identifying and tracking them down. I managed to figure out a few things. Sword Saint Meng replied. Firstly, based on the battle marks, the culprit used a total of 2 moves in order to subdue Zhao Ya and Wei Ruyan, rendering the both of them completely helpless. 2 moves. Zhong Xian narrowed his eyes. That's right. While there are many smaller holes on the ground, which makes it seem as if there was an intense battle, there are only 2 larger pits. The first pit is cloaked with a layer of frost, so I deduce that it should be the area where Zhao Ya faced off with the culprit. Tracing Sword Saint Meng's finger, Zhong Xian saw a slightly deeper pit with chilling frost lingering around it. It's likely that Zhao Ya was intending to launch an attack, but it was deflected by the culprit. The deflected energy ended up scattering around the area, resulting in the many smaller holes. From that, it could be seen that even when Zhao Ya was utilizing the limits of her strength, she was still no match for the culprit at all, Sword Saint Meng analyzed. Zhong Xian examined the surroundings once more and realized that the smaller holes seemed to congregate around the larger pit, which lent credibility to Sword Saint Meng's analysis. Furthermore, there were no notable marks of battle aside from that, so it was safe to assume that the battle had ended with that single collision. The same applies to Wei Ruyan through the other pit. Furthermore, from the proximity of the 2 larger pits, my guess is that the both of them made a move simultaneously, but the culprit still managed to subdue them with ease, Sword Saint Meng said with a grim look on her face. To be honest, she was a little astounded by her own discovery. For an individual to be able to subdue 2 top-notch experts in a single move, just who in the world could the culprit be? And what was their motive for doing this? Did the culprit not know that their actions would turn the Glacier Plain Court, Poison Hall, Sanctum of Sages, and even the Zhong clan against him? Each of those powers had extraordinary trump cards in their grasp that they would never use unless in desperate situations. Otherwise, they would not have been able to remain standing on the Master-Teacher continent for so many years. Clan head. While the 2 of them were still trying to make sense out of the situation, an elder of the Zhong clan suddenly flew over and called out. He was the 8th elder, the person who had delivered the message to Zhong Xian earlier. Zhong Xian turned his head over questioningly. The 8th elder clasped his fist and reported anxiously, reporting to the clan head, the Yuan clan has just sent a request for help. Their young master has been kidnapped by someone as well. Yuan Dao has been kidnapped, too? Zhong Xian nearly exploded on the spot. This is the message that an elder of the Yuan clan just sent over. The 8th elder passed a jade token over. Zhong Xian lowered his head and browsed through it gravely. Unlike the case with Zhao Ya and Wei Ruyan, the culprit had stomped right into the Yuan clan, breaching all of its defenses in an instant. Not even the full might of the Yuan clan was enough to stop them. Before they could even clearly see whom the culprit was, the culprit had already fled with Yuan Dao in their grasp. Where's the Yuan clan? Zhong Xian asked the 8th elder anxiously. The Yuan clan is located here, Sword Saint Meng said as she quickly sent the coordinates over. Let's head over right now. After confirming the location, Zhong Xian took out another bunch of grade 9 formation flags and constructed a teleportation formation. Who? The duo disappeared from the spot. The next instant, they were already in the vicinity of the Yuan clan. Clan head Zhong, sword Saint Meng. Very soon, the deputy clan head of the Yuan clan led the two of them to the main hall. We didn't manage to catch the appearance of the culprit clearly, but he was wearing a long robe when he entered the Yuan clan. Our first thought was that he was a master teacher, but there were some discrepancies in his attire. As soon as he arrived, he immediately captured Yuan Dao. We tried to stop him, but he simply blasted throughout Guardian formation with a single palm strike, the deputy clan head said as he pointed at the formation above. Zhong Xian and sword Saint Meng turned their gazes upward and saw a palm print on the roof and even the formations above them. A formation should not have any tangible form other than its formation flags, thus making it highly difficult to deal with. Yet, to be able to tear a hole right through multiple formations and even prevent the formations from converging back in to repair the hole, the culprit would truly be a troublesome person to deal with. As one of the top sage clans on the continent, the guardian formation of the Yuan clan was the crystallization of the wisdom of many generations of experts. Even among grade 9 formations, it was ranked at the very top. It would be no exaggeration to say that even those who had reached the pinnacle of great sage would be unable to do so, yet the culprit was able to do it with a single palm strike. It was no wonder he could capture Yuan Dao, who had already awakened his emperor's bloodline, so easily. It seemed like the culprit had already achieved an inconceivable level of strength. Even Yang Shi would not necessarily be able to pull this off. Sword Saint Meng's lips twitched at the sight as well. She had sparred with Yang Shi before, so she had a rough idea of just how powerful the latter was. Since she had said such words, it was likely the case. With a concerned frown, Zhong Xian could not help but ask, "Is the culprit an ancient sage?" Having reached the pinnacle of great sage, Yang Shi was indubitably one of the strongest experts on the master-teacher continent, matched by very few in the newer generation. The only ones who could really outdo him would be the ancient sages. And the only one whom Zhong Xian knew had the ability to do so was the otherworldly demonic emperor. No, the culprit isn't an ancient sage. The deputy clan head shook his head. I still can recognize the aura of ancient sages, and I'm certain that the other party hasn't reached such a level yet. The culprit is so powerful despite having yet to reach ancient sage. Zhong Xian's heart jolted in astonishment. Does the culprit possess some means reminiscent to the Pavilion Master Seal, granting him strength invincible among those beneath ancient sage? Chapter 1573. Just who could it be? While Yang Shi was unable to pull off a palm strike that could blast a hole right through the Yuan clan's guardian formation, Zhong Xian felt that he should be able to do it with the power of the Pavilion Master Seal. Could this mean that the culprit wielded strength comparable to him even in his enhanced state? But he was already making use of Kong Shi's blood essence. Did the culprit have something on par with that? But that's impossible. The fact that the Pavilion Master Seal containing 3 droplets of Kong Shi's blood was considered one of the strongest artifacts of the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters was enough to show how valuable and rare it was. It did not seem too probable for there to be a second artifact in the world that could compare to it. Even if the other party had Kong Shi's blood droplets in their possession, based on what he knew, only celestial master teachers should be able to utilize the power within them. So, it should not be possible for them to utilize the power within the blood droplets. Unable to make sense of the situation, Zhong Xian asked, could it be an ancient sage intentionally lowering his cultivation? That isn't too likely. If an ancient sage was truly here, the ancient sage of our Yuan clan would surely have sensed his presence and awoken, replied the deputy clan head, shaking his head. Zhong Xian widened his eyes in realization. If the Yuan clan had a hibernating ancient sage, it would make sense for him to awaken upon sensing the presence of other ancient sages. The fact that their ancient sage remained motionless despite the assault from the culprit showed that even though the culprit wielded incredible strength, he had yet to achieve a breakthrough to ancient sage. To wield such strength despite not being an ancient sage, just who could it be? Zhong Xian's complexion was turning worse and worse. It might have been better if the culprit was a real ancient sage so that the Yuan clan's ancient sage had awoken and stopped him or, at the very least, found out who the culprit was. However, that was unfortunately not the case, and that effectively left them with no clues to work with. All of a sudden, Zhongxian recalled something and asked anxiously, Yuan clan, do you know where the Spirit Awakener Guild headquarters is located in? I have a map over here. The head of the Yuan clan flicked his hand and passed a jade token over. Are you worried that the culprit might make a move on Wang Ying too? Sword Saint Meng immediately understood Zhongxian's intentions. That's right. Zhongxian nodded in response. Zhao Ya, Wei Ruyan, and Yuan Dao. 3 of his direct disciples had been kidnapped just like that. If the culprit was intentionally working against him, Wang Ying was likely to be the next victim. As for Zheng Yang, he should be safe with the Combat Master Hall. Even if the culprit really wielded prowess invincible beneath Ancient Sage, the culprit was still unlikely to provoke the powerful Combat Master Hall easily, so Zheng Yang should be in a considerably safer position. Let's quickly head over. Zhongxian quickly set up a teleportation formation, and before long, they were already in the Spirit Awakener Guild headquarters. After having expended her energy in activating 3 teleportation formations and using her Zhenqi to protect Zhongxian from the spatial turbulence, Sword Saint Meng was starting to show signs of exhaustion. Teacher, why are you here? We were just planning to head over to the Luo clan to celebrate your engagement. Wang Ying was delighted by Zhongxian's arrival, but a slight hint of bewilderment could be seen in the depths of her eyes. She knew that her teacher would not come to visit her all of a sudden without any reason, especially since they were soon going to meet in the Luo clan. Wang Ying, Zhao Ya, Wei Ruyan, and Yuan Dao have been kidnapped. Zhongxian explained grimly. They have been kidnapped. Wang Ying's eyes dilated in disbelief as her body trembled in shock. But, who could possibly have the strength to kidnap them? I have no idea either. I was worried that something might have happened to you, so I rushed over to check on you, Zhongxian said. Teacher, you suspect that the person might make a move on me next. Wang Ying swiftly understood what was going on. She turned around and instructed, Elder Qin, inform all Spirit Awakeners to prepare themselves. A battle could be coming very soon. Yes. Understanding the severity of the situation, Elder Qin quickly left the area to make preparations. After making arrangements, Wang Ying turned to Zhongxian worriedly. Teacher, do you know how Senior Zhao Ya and the others are doing at the moment? I don't know that either. The culprit didn't leave behind any trail, so even I'm unable to track the other party down. Zhongxian shook his head with a deep frown. For the time being, I'm thinking of lying in wait here. As long as the culprit strikes once more, we'll be able to apprehend and interrogate him. I understand. Realizing her teacher's intentions, Wang Ying nodded before falling silent. She arranged a place for the 2 of them to rest before sitting down to cultivate, not wasting any time at all. She was unable to match up to Zhao Ya and the others in terms of talent, so she could only make it up with her diligence. Along with the ample resources that she had as the head of the Spirit Awakener Guild, she was still able to improve considerably quickly. As they waited, the day soon went by. Before they knew it, the sun had already risen once again. However, there was still no movement from the culprit. It was as if the culprit knew that they were there and had chosen to lie low for the time being. Unable to wait patiently any longer, Zhongxian stood up and asked, Do you have any long-range communication formations here? Send a message over to Zheng Yang to check if he's all right. All right, teacher. Wang Ying replied before leaving the room. Not too long later, she returned. Teacher, Senior Zheng Yang has already arrived in the Luo clan. It doesn't seem like he has met with any trouble along the way. Nothing happened on his end either. Zhongxian frowned. As the culprit had made a move on Zhao Ya, Wei Ruyan, and Yuan Dao one after another, he figured that the culprit meant him and his students harm. That was the reason he had chosen to camp in the Spirit Awakener Guild for an entire day, waiting for the culprit to appear. Yet, it turned out that nothing had happened during this duration. Could he have mistaken the intentions of the culprit? All of a sudden, Zhongxian's body stiffened as he exclaimed in horror, Unique constitutions. Previously, Yangsha had said that in order to obtain the Great Codex of Spring and Autumn, other than gathering all 6 celestial amulets of legacy, one could also break the seal through substituting the amulets with the blood of those possessing specific unique constitutions. Zhao Ya, Wei Ruyan, and Yuan Dao's unique constitutions happened to be the few unique constitutions that could be used to substitute the amulets. On the other hand, Wang Ying and Zheng Yang did not possess a unique constitution, which might explain why they had not been targeted. Could that be the reason why the three of them had been targeted? If that was the intention of the culprit, in a sense, this could be considered good news, as the three of them should not be in any danger for the time being. After all, the purpose for the culprit capturing them was to open the seal to the Temple of Confucius and not to kill them. In order to ensure that nothing went wrong, it was unlikely for the culprit to harm them until the seal was finally deciphered. From this moment onward, Wang Ying, you should follow me around. Try not to stray too far away. Zhong Xian pondered for a moment before instructing. In the end, the matter about unique constitution was just speculation on his part. It would still be best for him to be careful. Where do you intend to head to now? Sword Saint Meng asked. After a day of rest, she had recuperated from her exertion the previous day. Her aura had regained its usual sharpness, reminiscent of a keen edge that could slice the heavens in two. Let's return to the Luo clan, Zhong Xian said. Right now? Sword Saint Meng was surprised to hear those words. She could tell that there was a deep bond between her son and his students, so she had thought that her son would want to further investigate the issue. There are some things that I would like to ask Yangshe. Also, if the culprit is really searching for unique constitutions, I suspect that he might go for the little princess next. If that's the case, there's a chance that he might wreak havoc during the engagement ceremony, Zhong Xian said. There was also one more thing he had neglected to mention, and that was that the Zhong clan and the Luo clan each possessed a celestial amulet of legacy. If the culprit had really captured Zhao Ya and the others for the sake of opening the Temple of Confucius, there was no way he would pass on the real celestial amulets of legacy. Furthermore, today was the day of the engagement between him and the little princess of the Luo clan, so nearly the entire upper echelons of the two clans would be around. From such a perspective, it could be an ideal opportunity for the culprit to strike if he wanted to acquire the real celestial amulets of legacy. Thus, the most effective move that he could make at this moment was actually to return to the Luo clan. Besides, if he could learn from Yangshe how the unique constitutions could be used to decipher the seal in the Temple of Confucius, he might be able to uncover some useful clues that would help him track down the culprit. Let's go then. Seeing that Zhong Xian had made up his mind, Sword Saint Meng decided not to say too much. They swiftly constructed a teleportation formation and warped back to the Luo clan. Chapter 1574 The Little Princess's Happiness 1. It was a bustling sight within the Luo clan. Festive lanterns were hung all around, and auspicious red cloth cloaked the buildings throughout shrouding ethereal city, indicating a joyous celebration. On this jolly day, the first elder of the Luo clan, Luo Qingchen, was dressed in a grand robe stitched with golden lining as he stood at the entrance to the main hall of the Luo clan with a radiant smile on his wrinkled face. The head of the Jiang clan, Jiang Fangyu, has arrived with 30 Saint 8 Dan beasts to congratulation the Zhong clan and the Luo clan on their engagement. The head of the Mu clan, Mu Hongzhen, has arrived with 3 boxes of 1,000-year-old medicinal herbs and 10 stalks of the true spirit peeper tree to congratulate the union of the Zhong clan and the Luo clan. The head of the Shui clan, Shui Fangtian, has arrived with 3,000 water anima crystals, 5,000 southern sea diamonds, and 207 star dragon eyes to offer early congratulations to the Zhong clan and the Luo clan for their matrimony. Such declarations sounded one after another as eminent figures of the master-teacher continent arrived one after another with wide smiles on their faces. Even a stomp of one of these figures' feet would resound loudly throughout the continent, but at that moment, they were personally delivering invaluable gifts to the Luo clan, not daring to show the slightest hint of impoliteness. Looking at the bustle all around, one of the elders in charge of welcoming the guests could not help but remark in awe. It seems like the entire continent has heard of Zhongshe's affairs in the Empire Alliance just a few days ago. This is just the engagement ceremony, but they are already delivering such generous gifts. I can't begin to imagine how long the queue of gifts will be for the official wedding. While the Luo clan wielded considerable influence on the master-teacher continent, it was far beyond its means to gather so many powerhouses together on the spur of the moment. In fact, Even the Zhong clan would have trouble pulling something like that off. But Zhong Xian, the current head of the Zhong clan, had managed to do it during a mere engagement ceremony. There was no doubt that the official marriage ceremony would be far grander than this, such that even the master-teacher pavilion headquarters would feel compelled to send an envoy down to relay their blessings. Of course, the reason for this unprecedented grandeur could only be attributed to the magnificent show of power from Zhong Xian a few days earlier. By now, the news should have already spread far and wide across the entire continent. In the tens of thousands of years since the establishment of the master-teacher pavilion, no one had ever successfully escaped from its arrest warrant before. However, Zhong Xian had created history on that very day. Not only did the world learn that the future head of the Combat Master Hall, the master of the Poison Hall, the chief of the Glacier Plain Court, and so on were all his students, he was even the head of the Sanctum of Sages and Yangshi's senior. That news had really shocked the entire world. With so many distinguished identities to his name, how could these shrewd powers possibly remain oblivious to the stance that they ought to take? It was also with knowledge of this that the Zhong clan did not hesitate to conduct the inauguration ceremony to officialize Zhong Xian's position as the clan head. Under Zhong Xian's halo, the Zhong clan's position was immediately brought to an unprecedented height. With so many formidable powers under the Zhong clan's sphere of influence, the Zhong clan would only grow stronger with time. Given so, who would dare snub the Zhong clan's dignity and refuse to offer their congratulations? Putting aside something as important as an engagement ceremony, even if Zhong Xian suffered the slightest cold, there was no doubt that an army of clan heads and sect leaders would swiftly deliver medicine and artifacts over as a display of goodwill. Indeed. How many years has it been since our Luo clan last enjoyed such splendor? Another elder by the side replied deeply. Even when their little princess had shocked the world by successfully assimilated the dimension silencer, thus elevating the reputation of the Luo clan to new heights, only a couple of clans had come to the Luo clan to offer their congratulations. Yet, in this very moment, nearly all of the notable powers throughout the master-teacher continent had arrived to convey their best wishes. It was no wonder the two elders felt as they did. Previously, when there was completely no news from the young prodigy of the Zhong clan, I had still been lamenting at how unfair the engagement was for the little princess. Who could have thought that the young prodigy would suddenly appear before our eyes once more with such magnificence, reminiscent to how it was when he was born back then? Indeed. Born as a carnate saint, even Kong Shi's sculpture levitated into the air to pay its respects to him, and the master-teacher pavilion headquarters specially sent an envoy down to relay their goodwill. There was no one in the world back then who didn't know about the extraordinary young prodigy of the Zhong clan. Truly, he didn't disappoint us even after all these years. Well, a star will eventually shine, but more importantly, who could have thought that person the little princess likes would actually be him too? I can't even begin to describe how happy I am for the little princess. After all the heavy tension over the past few months, it seems like everything will be resolved perfectly. Many elders nodded delightfully in agreement at those words. Despite the glory cast on the Luo clan as a result of the marriage with the Zhong clan, as long as the little princess was not fond of her fiancé, it would be like dynamite had been planted in their midst, waiting to explode at a trigger. Fortunately, it had been found that the little princess and the young prodigy actually had mutual feelings for one another, and this was the best ending that everyone hoped to see. Away from the bustle at the forefront, there was a small residence deep in the Luo clan that was filled with resplendent flowers. Within one of the rooms, a young lady sat before a mirror, carefully dressing herself up. A maid standing behind the young lady combed her hair carefully as she excitedly exclaimed, "Young mistress, doesn't it sound very lively outside? I heard that many distinguished figures have come to our Luo clan." I know. This is the third time that you have said that." The young lady shook her head with a helpless smile. Back then, I couldn't understand why someone as outstanding as our young mistress would fancy a principal from a Tier 1 Empire's Master-Teacher Academy, but it turns out that the future young master is actually a remarkable figure. Without saying a word at all, so many powers have already come to offer their congratulations. Other than the Master-Teacher Pavilion, I can't think of any power that could possibly wield such influence, the maid combing the young lady's hair remarked with admiration twinkling in her eyes. Not to forget, The master-teacher pavilion is without its real pavilion master at the moment, so it would be difficult for it to rally so many people at once, another maid chirped in with a chuckle. Our young mistress is truly a person blessed by the heavens. Just like that, the two maids chatted delightfully among themselves. The young lady seated in front of the mirror looked at her impeccable appearance in the mirror, and a blissful smile crept onto her lips. All of a sudden, the young lady turned around to look at the maid behind her, and the blissful smile on her face was replaced by uncertainty and apprehension. Have you found out what I asked you to investigate? Jongsha, did he say anything when he arrived yesterday? This. The maid was taken aback by the young lady's sudden actions. Just as she was about to speak, footsteps abruptly sounded outside, and cheerful laughter filled the air. There's no need to ask them. I have already checked on your behalf. Young master. Upon seeing who the person who had just walked into the room was, the maids quickly bowed down. UN. Luo Shenqing waved his hands, gesturing for the maids to rest easy. Looking at his younger sister, he chuckled. When I spoke of you before the lad yesterday, he was so agitated that he would have flown right to your side if he could. If not for me holding him back, he really might have done so. He was agitated. The young lady's face reddened in embarrassment. Elder brother, please don't make fun of me. Are you certain that he was agitated because of me? Aren't you asking the obvious? He's already here to ask for your hand in marriage, so how could he not know who you are? There's no need to worry. Luo Shenqing shook his head, not understanding his younger sister's worries. Perhaps this was how brides were. The closer they were to their marriage, the more unnerved they became. That's a relief. I was just thinking that when I had disguised my appearance when I first met him. The little princess replied with an awkward smile. I was afraid that he wouldn't recognize me after seeing my true appearance. Young mistress, rest assured. I have seen your disguised look, too, and the current you looks at least 10 times prettier than you did back then. There's no way the future young master wouldn't be charmed by your beauty, a maid remarked joyfully. That's surely the case, young mistress. I can swear on my life that if you meet him with your current looks, he will swiftly fall in love with you all over again, the other maid teased with a smile. The two of you only know how to tease me, the young lady retorted with a crimson blush on her face. Turning her gaze back to Luo Shenqing, she asked, Elder brother, where is he at the moment? He has some matters to attend to, so he's currently out at the moment, but he should be returning very soon. Yusin, you don't have to worry about anything. I'm sure that you don't want him to see you with a fretful frown on your face, right? Luo Shenqing chuckled as he massaged the young lady's glabella to loosen the deep creases there. UN. The young lady nodded with a smile. As far as she could remember, she had always carried the burden of an engagement. She had thought that this was the only path that she could follow, and the only thing that she could do was compromise. As such, she had never dared imagine a life where she walked down the long journey of life with the person whom she loved till the end of their time. Perhaps, the heavens were not as heartless as she thought. Chapter 1575 The little princess's happiness too. Seeing the euphoric look on his younger sister's face, Luo Shenqing said with a relieved smile, Sword Saint Xing of the Zhong clan is currently discussing the plans for the marriage ceremony with our father, and we have already accepted their betrothal gifts. Most likely, you will return to the Zhong clan with that lad today. You should quickly head out once you are done preparing, the guests are dying to meet you. While he was a little reluctant to see his younger sister marrying another man, this was already the best possible situation there could possibly be. Such a coincidence was one that he never would have dared imagine to be possible. UN. The young lady nodded before turning her gaze back to the mirror. Help me check if there's anywhere that needs more tidying up. Don't worry, young mistress. There's no one who could be more beautiful than you today, the maid behind replied with a smile. All along, the young mistress had been a cold and composed person. Who could have thought that she would have such a side to her when it came to the person whom she loved? Is that so? Heaving a sigh of relief, the young lady stood up and looked at her elder brother with a demure smile. Elder brother, let's go. UN. Luo Shenqing nodded as he led the way out. The two maids quickly followed behind them. The The young lady could not resist asking, "Elder brother, who is here today?" While she had heard rumors about the formidable lineup of guests from the maids, she was not too clear about the specifics. Nearly all of the clan heads and first elders of the sage clans are present. It seems like that lad's reputation is really one to behold. Luo Shenqing chuckled. To be honest, even he could hardly believe that so many people had come. All of the sage clan's clan heads are present. The young lady widened her eyes in astonishment. They are all here, to congratulate us on our engagement. Why else do you think? Luo Shenqing replied. The last time something as grand as this happened was when our founder established the Luo clan, but there weren't even as many guests back then. Your engagement has really pushed the Luo clan back to the top of the master-teacher continent once more. While that lad can be unreliable from time to time, I must say that he has really done well this time. He has allowed our little princess over here to marry in fashion, not suffering the slightest grievance at all. UN. The young lady nodded as a warm surge flowed into her heart. Despite having assimilated the dimension silencer and becoming the strongest expert in the younger generation, she knew that even she did not have the influence to rally so many people at once. This glory would be eternally carved in the history of the Luo clan, remembered even after many millenniums. The young mistress has always wished to marry the person whom she loves with the blessing of the entire world. Can this be considered as her wish coming true? One of the maids behind asked with a smile. Of course. If this can't be considered as the blessing of the entire world, what else could be? Luo Shenqing replied. The main hall is right ahead. You should put on your veil first. While merrily chatting, they finally arrived before the main hall. With a gaze from Luo Shenqing, the maids behind quickly covered the young lady's ravishing looks with a red veil. According to tradition, the bride had to cover her face with a red veil during the engagement ceremony. With so many powers observing the ceremony, this tradition had to be respected. After putting on the red veil, the young lady walked into the main hall behind Luo Shenqing. Before they could even assume their positions, a loud declaration came from behind. Deputy Sanctum Head Zhon Tiancheng and the many elders of the Sanctum of Sages have arrived to congratulate the fated couple from the Zhong clan and the Luo clan. Deputy Pavilion Master Ren Qingyuan and 10 other 9-star master teachers from the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters have come to relay their blessings to the engaged couple. Even the personnel from the Sanctum of Sages and Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters have come. Furthermore, it's the Deputy Sanctum Head and the Deputy Pavilion Master. The young lady was astounded. It was already shocking to see that all of the heads of the Sage clans had come to offer their best wishes, but to think that even the Deputy Pavilion Master of the Master Teacher Pavilion would arrive with so many 9-star master teachers to relay their blessing. There was truly no greater honor than this. With a ceremony of such a scale, there was nothing more that she could ask for. Grand Elder Hua Shiqing of the Master Teacher Pavilion has come with his disciples to congratulate the Zhong clan and the Luo clan. Hua Shiqing. Isn't that the Grand Elder who has already retired from the secular world? Why would he attend this wedding ceremony as well? I have no idea. Previously, when Ren Qingyuan was inaugurated as the Deputy Pavilion Master, an invitation was sent to Hua Shiqing as well, but he turned down the invitation. Who would have expected him to attend this wedding instead? Could there be any greater honor than this? If I were the little princess of the Luo clan, I would have died of bliss by now. Shocked and envious exclamations erupted all around. Even Grand Elder Hua Shiqing is here as well. The young lady clenched her fists tightly in agitation. When she was still a young child, her father had taken her to Hua Shiqing in the hope of convincing the latter to tutor her, only to be turned down. Who would have thought that the other party would actually attend her engagement ceremony? Mystical Hands Gentleman has come to relay his blessings. Grand Elder Wu Qing of the Blacksmith Guild has come to congratulate the soon-to-be wedded couple. Priest of the Calm Lake Du Yao have come to relay their blessings. Frenzied Saber Ling Huchong has come to offer his best wishes. The shock did not stop with just the arrival of Grand Elder Hua Shiqing. Soon, many more declarations sounded outside. Many familiar names who had left a mark in the history of the master-teacher continent sounded one after another in the ears of the crowd, raising an uproar in the main hall. Mystical Hands Gentleman is a figure who rose into prominence 1,000 years ago. He was once the head of the Physician Guild, but he suddenly disappeared from the world 500 years ago. Many thought that he had passed on, but who knew that not only is he still alive, he even came to relay his blessings to the newlywed? That legendary man has saved the lives of countless experts during his time, such that many of the experts from the older generation are indebted to him. Isn't Grand Elder Wu Qing known as the Heartless Blacksmith, devoid of any sentiments or emotions even to his loved ones? It's said that his son personally begged him to forge a weapon for his lover, only to be shut out of his door. Yet, he actually came for this engagement ceremony. I have taken a look at his gift, and it seems to be a great sage-tier treasure. Who is the priest of the Calm Lake? That man is quite an eccentric figure on the master-teacher continent. He made a name for himself 300 years ago when he defeated 3 9-star master teachers simultaneously with his swordsmanship. He's very fond of chess, and he has gone around the world challenging chess experts one after another, only to be unable to find a worthy rival. But one day, he abruptly disappeared from the face of the continent, his whereabouts known to none. I never would have thought that he would come for the engagement ceremony today. Actually, the one whom I respect the most is still frenzied Saber Ling Huchong. I came here hoping to forge a good relationship with the Luo clan and the Zhong clan, but who could have thought that I would actually have the honor of meeting these distinguished experts as well? This is really a huge eye-opener for me. This trip here hasn't been wasted. Indeed. I would have regretted it for life if I had missed out on such a huge gathering, as the names that only existed in legends in the minds of the crowd sounded one after another. A huge uproar broke out amid the crowd. Even the esteemed heads of the sage clans trembled excitedly in face of these legendary figures, as if little kids meeting their idols. Zhongshe was the one who got all of them here. With her face veiled, the young lady was unable to see what was happening around her. However, she could still roughly figure out what was going on from the discussion of others, and her eyes reddened in agitation. As a female offspring of a major clan, her fate had already been determined at birth. Knowing that she could only walk down the path that others had carved for her, she had never dared dream of the future. She had never thought that her life could ever be so dazzling and magnificent. Thank you. Knowing that Zhongshe must have gone through a lot of effort to specially invite them over for this occasion, the young lady's heart was filled with gratitude. Look, Zhongshe is here. At that moment, another commotion broke out amid the crowd. Zhong Xian and Sword Saint Meng were making their way into the main hall from afar. Chapter 1576 The Storm After the Calm. How come there are so many people around? Zhong Xian had rushed all the way back to the Luo clan, but before he even arrived at the main hall where the guests were hosted, he had already nearly fainted from shock. He was only here to ask for Luo Ruoxin's marriage in hand. It was not even their marriage yet. He had thought that it would just be a small ceremony consisting mainly of his students, but that notion had swiftly been overthrown by the sight before him. Given the commotion that you've caused, it's a given that you would draw so many people here. As for those experts who have already gone into seclusion, I figure that they have come on Yangshe's account. Sword Saint Meng said. Yangshe's account? That's right. Grand Elder Hua Shiqing of the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters once received Yangshe's guidance, and the two of them are very close friends with one another. As for the Mystical Hands Gentleman, it's said that Yangshe once saved him from a treacherous predicament. I'm not too sure about Wu Qing, but for the priest of the Calm Lake, it's said that he challenged Yangshe to a chess battle several hundred years ago, only to lose tragically. Eventually, he could only resign himself to becoming a guard for Yangshe's residence, Sword Saint Meng explained with a smile. Those were confidential secrets, but due to the close relationship between the Zhong clan and Yangshe, she was still aware of quite a few things. Considering that most of them were seniors who had already retired from the secular world, who other than Yangshe could possibly have the ability to rally them together? I'll have to make sure to relay my thanks to Yangshe later on then, Zhong Xian remarked as he shook his head with a bitter smile. He had come to ask for Luo Ruoxin's hand in marriage, but it turned out to be something far larger than what he had thought it would be. However, It was apparent that Yangsha was doing this for him too. The more imposing the engagement ceremony was, the greater his influence would be. In the future, when he revealed his identity as the celestial master teacher, his authority and prestige would be greater, too. "Let's enter the main hall," Sword Saint Meng said. As soon as the two of them entered the main hall, Lu Chong and Zheng Yang swiftly rushed up to him. "Teacher." They had also heard the news, and it had left them deeply worried and anxious. "I've been to the scene, and with the culprit's strength, he could easily do away with Zhao Yue and the others if he wanted to. The fact that he chose to go through the trouble of kidnapping them instead means that they won't be in any danger for the time being," Zhong Xian reassured the two young men before him. "However, we still mustn't let our guard down. Since the culprit has made the first move, we can anticipate more actions from him in the future. If I'm right, there's a good chance that the culprit might appear here today. So, prepare yourselves for battle at any moment." UN. Zheng Yang and Lu Chong traded glances before nodding simultaneously. Zhao Yue and Wei Ruyan were by no means weaker than them, yet the culprit had still managed to kidnap them so easily. If the culprit went to the Luo clan, they would really have to use everything at their disposal in order to prevent the culprit from getting away. "Clan head Zhong, I am the sect leader of the Lucid River sect. It's really an honor to be able to witness the engagement between the Zhong clan and the Luo clan." Shortly after Lu Chong and Zheng Yang walked away to make preparations, the others in the room swiftly swarmed over after confirming Zhong Xian's identity. "That's Zhongsha. He sure is an extraordinary young man. Despite only being 20 this year, not only has he become the head of the Sanctum of Sages, all of his students are also powerhouses of the master-teacher continent. I really wonder how he managed to do this. I heard that even the esteemed Yangsha has to call him senior. Given Yangsha's guidance and the fact that he possesses the purest bloodline in the Zhong clan, it's no wonder he has achieved such heights at his young age. Everyone, there's always time to get together and chat in the future. It wouldn't be good if we made the pair of soon-to-be newlyweds miss their auspicious hour." Luo Qingchen stepped forward and calmed the crowd down. Be it for engagement or marriage, it was always best to pick out the most auspicious moment in order to bless the couple. Such traditions were exceptionally important for large clans with a long heritage such as the Luo clan. Knowing this, the crowd shared some pleasantries before swiftly opening a pathway into the main hall. Zhong Xian inwardly heaved a sigh of relief before following Luo Qingchen to the center of the main hall. There were 3 chairs at the very center, and Sword Saint Xing and Yang Shi were seated in 2 of them. As for the last one, it was taken up by a rather imposing-looking middle-aged man. His facial features bore some semblance of Luo Xuanqing's, but they were a little deeper and more authoritative. Without a doubt, the middle-aged man was the little princess's father, as well as his future father-in-law. Standing behind the middle-aged man was Luo Shenqing and a demure young lady with a red veil concealing her appearance. Ruoxin. Zhong Xian's body tensed up upon seeing the young lady, and indescribable joy surged through his body. The several months that they had been apart from one another felt like several decades to him. There was no day or night when the young lady had not crossed his mind. Zhong Xian took in a deep breath to calm his agitation before forcefully turning his attention back to the discussion between the heads of the 2 clans, wanting to hear the details for the wedding. However, his eyes still could not help but drift over to the young lady, and he swiftly noticed that something was amiss. Her physique looks a little different. He had sealed his relationship with Luo Ruoxin at the Qiuwu Palace, but they had ended up parting from one another not too long after that. While the time spent together was extremely short, her beautiful physique was imprinted in the depths of his mind, never to be forgotten. While there was no flaw to be picked with the demure young lady beneath the red veil too, the differences were still apparent to him. Could it be that she has not only disguised her appearance but her physique back then too? He had indeed used the Eye of Insight on Luo Ruoxin before, and he was aware that she had disguised her appearance. However, as for her physique, he really had not paid too much heed to it. Could this be what her body truly looked like? Just as Zhong Xian's mind was wandering around the place, conflicted as to whether he should use his spiritual perception or Eye of Insight on the young lady to assuage the uncertainty in his mind, Sword Saint Xing's voice suddenly sounded ahead of him. Xiena, our opinion is that the marriage ceremony should be carried out as soon as possible after we return to our Zhong clan. What's your view on the matter? I have no objections to that. Zhong Xian hurriedly nodded. Marrying Luo Ruoxin had been his greatest desire ever since he arrived on the master-teacher continent, and with the endpoint already in sight, how could he possibly back out at this moment? Great, it's settled then. I would like to thank our friends for coming all the way here for us, and I would like to formally invite every single one of you to the Zhong clan to witness this joyous occasion for both our clans. Sword Saint Xing laughed heartily. Of course, of course. I wouldn't want to miss out on the wedding toast. The crowd quickly clasped their fists and replied. Having decided on the procedures for the marriage ceremony, there was nothing else that needed discussion. Thus, Sword Saint Xing stood up from his seat and gestured grandly. Great. Let's set off then. At this point, he realized that his son was still standing in a daze by the side, and he could not help but chuckle. What are you spacing out for? Shouldn't you be leading your future wife to the bridal sedan chair? Yes. Zhong Xian shook himself out of his daze and hurriedly walked over to the young lady. Just as he was about to hold the young lady's hand, a huge commotion suddenly erupted outside, followed by deafening explosions. What's happening? The head of the Luo clan hurriedly stood up and looked outside. One of the elders of the Luo clan rushed over and reported, "Clan head, bad news. 2 intruders are barging into our main hall, and our men aren't able to stop them. So many experts have gathered here today to witness the marriage between the Zhong clan and the Luo clan, yet there's still someone who is so brazen as to dare wreak havoc here? Very well, allow me to meet that person then." The face of the head of the Luo clan turned livid, and his eyes narrowed menacingly. To dare stir trouble on such an important occasion, not to mention in the face of so many experts, were the intruders not too impertinent? It should be him. Zhong Xian quickly shot a glance over to Zheng Yang and the others, only to see that they had already prepared themselves. Previously, he had already guessed that the culprit who had kidnapped Zhao Ya, Wei Ruyan, and Yuan Dao would appear at this important occasion in order to acquire the celestial amulets of legacy from the Zhong clan and the Luo clan, and considering the fuss that was happening at this moment, it seemed like his intuition was spot on. Let's head over to take a look as well. Unable to remain composed upon realizing that the culprit who had kidnapped his students was in the vicinity, Zhong Xian quickly followed the head of the Luo clan out. As he reached the doorway of the main hall, he saw all of the elders of the Luo clan and the experts who had charged out earlier being knocked back forcefully. Even with their strength combined, they were not a match for the intruders. Are they the ones who have kidnapped Zhao Ya? With such a thought in mind, Zhong Xian turned his gaze toward the intruders and saw that the person who had made a move earlier was an adolescent boy, appearing to be only around 13 to 14 years old. Standing behind the adolescent boy was a veiled young lady. While it was impossible to discern her appearance through the veil, it was apparent from her silhouette that she was a rare beauty. Her physique. Zhong Xian's body suddenly stiffened as a bad premonition arose in his heart. Hula. At the same moment, the veil concealing the young lady's face slowly drifted to the ground, revealing a ravishing face that would leave any man frenzied over it. Firesource City, I opened my heart to you. Qiuwu Palace, I swore my future to you. Zhong Xian, you have promised to be with me no matter what the future holds, but why do I see you marrying another woman here? Many emotions rippled in the reddened eyes of the young lady: anger, indignation, sorrow, resentment. Why you are Luo Ruoxin? As if a streak of lightning had flashed through his brain, Zhong Xian's mind was plunged into chaos. The young lady before him was none other than the person whom he had sworn to walk down the long journey of life with, Luo Ruoxin. But if she was Luo Ruoxin, who could the little princess be? Hurriedly turning around, Zhong Xian saw the other young lady removing her red veil, revealing a breathtaking countenance that carried some semblance of someone he knew. Zhong Xian froze on the spot. Chichi, it's a widespread Chinese superstition that there are certain days and hours that are more auspicious than the others, and this often influences the choice of date and time for one's marriage. For those who are unfamiliar with traditional Chinese wedding process, the groom usually first heads to the bride's family to fetch the bride and put her into a bridal sedan chair, which is basically a red carriage carried by men. The groom would lead to the bride back to the groom's family, where the marriage ceremony would be conducted. Chapter 1577. Who dares to hurt him? She was much more beautiful than the Luo Chichi that he knew, but from her disposition, gaze, and gesture, he could still see the student who was filled with admiration for him in her, Luo Chichi. It was in the Huanyu Empire that they first met. Despite her cold exterior, she was a very hard-working and driven person, never hesitating to lower her pride in order to improve herself. At Qingyuan City, she confessed to him earnestly, only to be pushed away then. He had thought that it would be unlikely for them to meet once more after their parting then, but who could have thought that their reunion would actually come in such a form? How could Chichi be the little princess? Zhong Xian felt as if he was going to crumble into pieces. All this time, he had thought that Luo Ruoxin was the little princess of the Luo clan. In order to be with her, he had desperately trained and cultivated, he had wreaked havoc in the Zhong clan, he tried his best to get close with Luo Shenqing. But all of a sudden, it turned out that the little princess was actually Chichi, not Luo Ruoxin. His mind simply could not accept that fact all of a sudden. Luo Chichi had also noticed Luo Ruoxin as well, and her body trembled a little. She knew that Zhong Xian had always viewed her as his student, and his feelings for her were not romantic in nature. So, when she heard that the other party had come to ask for her hand in marriage, she had been surprised. It had been like a dream come true for her, but she did not dare harbor any expectations about it. She had thought that it might have been a mistake, so she had kept urging her elder brother to verify the matter for her. And the moment that she saw Luo Ruoxin, she immediately understood everything. Could it be that Zhong Xian had thought that she was actually Luo Ruoxin? Could it be that the person whom Zhong Xian truly loved was the master teacher of the Hongyuan Empire, Luo Shi? Otherwise, what could her words about Firesource City and the Qiu Wu Palace possibly mean? Luo Chichi felt as if a knife had plunged deep into her heart. All of the bliss that she had felt receded like water flowing through her hand. She found herself completely helpless as despair encroached on her. There was nothing she could do but tremble powerlessly as the tragedy unfolded before her eyes. Using the dimension silencer to seal her cultivation had come with many flaws. A huge portion of her memory had been locked away in the sealing process as well, and it could only be recovered after her cultivation reached a certain level. Despite that, there was no doubt that this young man was the first person to have walked into her heart, and this had not changed even with her memories unlocked. Her feelings for him remained as vivid as before. She had been born with great talent, and those around her expected great things from her. She had always tried to meet their expectations, but meeting him had made her realize that such a life was not what she truly wanted. The time spent with him had given rise to a very simple yet faraway dream for her. She wished that the person she loved would one day marry her with blessings from the entire world. Everything had been perfect. The person she loved had come to propose to her, and the entire world had pretty much come to offer their blessings for her marriage. Yet, everything beyond had veered off course. It was no wonder Zhong Xian had refused to accept her feelings, forcefully changing the conversation to turn her down subtly. It turned out that he already had someone whom he fancied then, and the both of them had already gotten together. Otherwise, there was no way Luo Shi would have rushed in at this moment and uttered those words. As this thought came to mind, a tear flowed down Luo Chichi's cheek. "You said that you would wait for me. You said that no matter how difficult it would be, we would eventually be together." Ignoring the gazes from the surroundings, Luo Ruoxin gazed at Zhong Xian with eyes reminiscent of an inferno, as if wanting to bore a hole through this man and peer into his heart. Due to her birth, she had never dared devote her feelings to anyone. She could not afford to allow herself to be vulnerable. She had always maintained an ice-cold exterior before others, and it had protected her well until the frost in her heart had slowly been thawed by the young man before her. In Qiu Wu Palace, he had sworn that he would be with her no matter how much suffering and pain he had to go through, and his vow had convinced her to take a leap of faith this once to pursue this uncertain future with him. Yet, in just a few short months, she had found that he was actually going to marry another woman. Was this all his feelings for her amounted to? "Ruoxin, this is a misunderstanding. I Seeing Luo Ruoxin's state, Zhongshen panicked. I thought that you were the little princess of the Luo clan. What? Luo Ruoxin was caught off guard by the unexpected response. You never told me your real identity, but those around me told me time and time again that you are the little princess of the Luo clan. I thought that given your surname and the strength you wield, that would be the case. Zhongshen felt as if his scalp was exploding. He had no idea how he should explain the situation to the other party. To fail to recognize even his own girlfriend, that was simply courting death. But back then, Ruoxin had left without saying a word or explaining anything at all, and if one had to think of a person who wielded such tremendous strength at such a young age, it could only have been the little princess of the Luo clan. It was not that he had never tried to verify this matter himself, but when he tried to do so, he had realized that he did not even know Luo Ruoxin's real name. Thus, he could only clutch on desperately to this clue that he had, or else he would have been completely lost. And the affairs afterward only further confirmed his suspicion. An elder of the Luo clan sought him to warn him against getting close to the little princess of the Luo clan, and shortly after, the little princess of the Luo clan also declared her feelings for him. More importantly, out of some sheer coincidence, he had actually never met with the little princess of the Luo clan to date. Luo Ruoxin stared at Zhongshen intently, wanting to see if the young man before her was speaking the truth. After a long while, she sighed deeply and said, I can't tell you my true identity for the time being. Come with me, I'll bring you somewhere else. Somewhere else? Where? Seeing that Luo Ruoxin was giving him a chance to explain, Zhongshen heaved a sigh of relief. You'll know once we get there, Luo Ruoxin replied before turning to leave. All right. Zhongshen hesitated for a brief instant before taking a step forward, intending to leave together with her. After his huge botch-up, if he did not leave with Luo Ruoxin right now, they might very well never meet again in the future. Wait a moment. Barely after taking 2 steps, a figure suddenly stood in Zhongshen's path, Luo Shenqing. The young man was trembling with sheer rage, reminiscent of a volcano that would erupt at any moment. Zhongshen, what are you doing right now? Who is that person over there? Brother Luo, I have to. Zhongshen hesitated for a moment before replying, but before he could finish his words, a punch was already smashing right for his face. Hula! This punch harnessed Luo Xuanqing's full strength, such that even space warped before his might. Brother Luo! Zhongshen exclaimed as he took a step back. Don't call me your brother, I am unworthy of it. Luo Shenqing bellowed as he charged toward Zhongshen, seemingly reluctant to rest until he finally reduced the person before him into meat paste. This is actually... While dodging the attacks, Zhongshen tried to explain the matter to Luo Shenqing, but he had no idea where he should start. It was only because he had thought that Luo Ruoxin was the little princess of the Luo clan that he agreed to the marriage. So many esteemed guests had come to witness the ceremony, yet he wanted to turn around and leave at this crucial moment, all because he had recognized the wrong person. This was as good as viciously trampling on the Luo clan's pride. There was no one who could accept such a thing. Stop hiding. If you are a man, face me straight on in a battle. Either you give me a satisfactory explanation here, or you'll have to step over my dead body when you leave. Luo Shenqing bellowed furiously as he continued his assault. As if 6 more arms had sprouted out of his body, he launched powerful punches one after another. Despite being only at St. 8 Dan primary stage, the might that he exerted was actually on par with a dimension-sundering realm pinnacle expert. Brother Luo, Zhongshen tried to explain as he retreated. Enough. I told you not to address me as Brother Luo. Seeing that his attacks were not reaching the other party, Luo Shenqing gritted his teeth furiously. In the next moment, his strength swiftly surged to an unbelievable level. Bloodline ability. Luo Shenqing had actually activated his bloodline ability without much hesitation. Sila. Before long, Luo Xuanqing's strength had risen to a level comparable to St. 9 Dan primary stage cultivators. He swiftly whipped out a sword and continued his frenzied assault against Zhongshen. His sword art was far stronger than the barrage of fists that he had launched previously, and his swings tore right through space, creating spatial rifts one after another in the air. In the first place, The Luo clan was skilled in spatial manipulation, and Luo Shenqing had activated his bloodline ability at that. The prowess that he exerted was so fearsome that even a macrocosm ascendancy realm pinnacle cultivator would have trouble coping under his furious assault. However, even though Zhongxian was only at macrocosm ascendancy realm primary stage, his fighting prowess was already on par with great sage Wundan experts. With nimble movements, he managed to dodge Luo Xuanqing's sword perfectly. Brother Luo, I know that I have done your Luo clan a great injustice this time around, and rest assured that I will definitely give you a satisfactory explanation in the future. There's no need for you explain anything anymore. Today, only one of us will leave here alive. Hong Long. With frightening momentum, Luo Shenqing continued hacking down on Zhongxian with his sword. His sword severed the fabric of the surrounding space, and after several strikes, his attack culminated to form a spatial storm. If hitting me will make you feel any better, do it then. Seeing that it was impossible to converse with Luo Shenqing, Zhongxian eventually came to a halt, choosing not to dodge anymore. In the first place, this matter was his fault. Puha! Luo Xuanqing's sword pierced right through Zhongxian's shoulder, creating a gaping hole. Fresh blood trickled down to the floor. Die! After piercing through Zhongxian's shoulder, Luo Shenqing twisted his blade, intending to tear Zhongxian in two. But barely after twisting the blade, he suddenly felt his entire body freezing in place, as if some kind of compelling might was shackling him down, preventing him from moving. "He's the man that I, Luo Ruoxin, love. I would like to see which of you dares to hurt him." Boom! A powerful shockwave burst forth from Luo Ruoxin, and Luo Shenqing was forced to retreat continuously. At the same time, the sword in his grasp also flew into the horizon, disappearing without a trace. Chapter 1578 The Adolescent Boy Audacious. Men, take that demoness down. Seeing that the young lady had actually made a move on Luo Shenqing, the head of the Luo clan also swiftly understood what was going on, and with a wrathful look on his face, he bellowed furiously. If the young lady really took Zhongxian away with her, their Luo clan would become the laughingstock of the entire continent. Yes. Voila! After those words were spoken, several dozen Luo clan's elders rose into the air and surrounded Luo Ruoxin and the adolescent boy beside her. No. Not expecting things to turn out like that, Zhongxian panicked. However, when he tried to make a move, he felt something constricting his body. He quickly turned around and saw that two elders of the Luo clan had sealed the space around him. He immediately tried to activate the power of Kongsha's blood droplet in his hand, but he found himself unable to close his hand to touch the blood droplet, thus rendering him unable to activate it. Demoness! Since you have dared come here today, why don't you allow our Luo clan to give you a warm welcome? Harumphing coldly, Luo Qingchen flicked his finger furiously, shooting a burst of sword chi forth. At this moment, the young lady had already reverted to her usual cold and lofty demeanor. Gazing at the elders around her, she was just about to make a move when the adolescent boy beside her took a step forward and said, "Milady, please allow me to handle these lowly beings. You mustn't dirty your hands over them." Yuan Luo Ruoxin nodded before placing her hands behind her back, not moving at all. It was as if the attack from the first elder of the Luo clan could not even catch her eye. Die! Not expecting the other party to be so arrogant, Luo Qingchen felt blood rushing to his head in fury. He pumped even more energy into his sword chi, causing it to glow menacingly in the air as it sliced through the space in its pathway. Just as it was about to land on Luo Ruoxin, the adolescent boy suddenly walked up with a smile and grabbed the burst of sword chi in between his fingers. Po! The burst of sword chi exploded. After dissipating Luo Qingchen's sword chi, the adolescent boy raised his palm and spat, grovel. In an instant, Luo Qingchen felt as if the world was shaking around him, causing him to be unable to balance himself. If not for him exerting all of his strength to balance himself, he might have fallen right from the sky. "Attack him together!" Luo Qingchen barked out a command. Despite the young appearance of the adolescent boy, there was no doubt that the other party was a formidable expert. It would be foolish to underestimate the other party after what had just happened. The elders in the area also realized that the adolescent boy was far stronger than he appeared after seeing the powerful first elder meeting a setback while clashing with the adolescent boy. Without any hesitation, they charged forth simultaneously. Even the weakest of the dozens of elders was at Saint Nine Dan, and their powers rained down on the adolescent boy and Luo Ruoshin like rapid rain. In the blink of an eye, a spherical light barrier formed around the two of them. The area around the spherical barrier was pitch black, a sign that the surrounding space had been torn to shreds by the very emergence of the barrier. Within the barrier, a fearsome spatial storm raged, such that even pinnacle saint artifacts would be swiftly reduced to dust before its might. It's the Luo clan's demon-subduing sphere. Even I wouldn't be able to last long within it, Yangsha remarked grimly. Individually, these elders came nowhere close to being a match for him. However, when their prowess was put together, it would be truly foolish to underestimate the might that they could exert. Even a sempiternal realm cultivator like Yangsha would be unable to withstand its prowess. Interesting. The adolescent boy showed no signs of panic against the attack. He stretched his fingers outward, and they seemed to transform into the meandering branches of a tree as they struck specific points in the air. Po! The surrounding space immediately swayed unstably, reminiscent of a rock being thrown into a calm lake. Under the intense swaying of the surrounding space, the prowess of the spherical light barrier was diverted upward into the sky before vanishing without a trace. This is spatial interference. Just what kind of level has that adolescent boy reached? Yangsha exclaimed in shock. He had already been surprised by how the adolescent boy was able to withstand Luo Qingchen's attack, but who would have thought that he would be able to defend against the Luo clan's strongest demon-subduing sphere so easily by redirecting its might upward? Such a feat could only be described as terrifying. Spatial interference. What's that? Sword Saint Xing asked. Even he was unable to make sense out of the move that the adolescent boy had executed earlier. The demon-subduing sphere is a collaborative formation that an elder of the Luo clan has created. It serves to combine the might of 21 experts through overlapping 3 Big Dipper formations upon one another to channel their might into forming a dimensionally isolated spherical space. As this space exists in a different dimension from the one that we are in, it is impossible for ordinary cultivators to flee from it, and it would just be a matter of time before those trapped in the space are killed. It's due to this reason that I said that even I would be no match for it. At this point, Yangsha's face grew incredibly grim as he continued. However, through simple taps, the adolescent boy was able to send ripples of spatial disturbance through the space, tearing it apart with ease. Using an analogy, the demon-subduing sphere could be described as a cloth with ants crawling on it. As long one remains on the cloth, it will be impossible to avoid the ants. However, if one just jumps out of the cloth and flicks it, the ants will be diverted elsewhere, thus rendering their offense futile. This is basically how spatial interference works. Similarly, through stirring up the surrounding space, even the demon-subduing sphere won't pose a threat anymore. This Sword Saint Xing's body jolted in astonishment. 4 great sage cultivators, severing space did not pose much of a problem at all, but this spatial interference was clearly far more fearsome than simply severing space. For even the adolescent boy to be this formidable, just who in the world could the young lady whom his son fancied be? Forget it, I won't play with you all anymore. All of you, grovel. After undoing the Luo clan's demon-subduing sphere with a single move, the adolescent boy chuckled and raised his palm once more. Voila! The next moment, Luo Qingchen and the other elders plummeted from the sky and crashed onto the ground. Their faces turned ghastly pale, and fresh blood spurted from their mouths. Activate the Guardian formation, the head of the Luo clan bellowed. He had not thought that the 2 intruders would wield such frightening prowess. He flicked the token in his hand into the sky, and soon after, an intense energy disturbance rippled through the surroundings. Then, everything suddenly calmed down, as if nothing had happened at all. It might have seemed as if nothing had happened to weaker cultivators, but those who had gathered there were all top experts of the master-teacher continent, and they could clearly feel that a formidable formation had enveloped them, sealing the sky away from their reach. As a clan whose heritage could be traced back to tens of thousands of years ago, the Luo clan's guardian formation was truly formidable. Once it was activated, as long as one could not find the right way to decipher it, even an expert of Yang Shi's caliber could only remain trapped in it. The reason Zhongxian had been able to easily escape from the Zhong clan's guardian formation back then was because he had been able to find its flaws easily through the library of Heaven's Path. To him, formations were no different from a sheep stripped bare of its fleece, its secrets laid bare before him. But it was different for others. Most spatial arts could not be utilized within sealed spaces, thus reducing one's fighting prowess significantly. On top of that, the Guardian formation was bound to have an offensive aspect to it, such that even sempiternal realm cultivators would fall into a fluster once they were trapped within it, making it difficult for them to escape. Seeing that even the collaboration of the many elders was insufficient to subdue the other party, the head of the Luo clan had decisively chosen to execute his trump card. So, this is the Guardian formation of the Luo clan. Not too shabby. However, you are still too naive if you think something of this level is sufficient to trap me. With a chuckle, the adolescent boy leaped into the sky. Tslala. At the same time, the Luo clan's guardian formation began coiling innumerable spatial threads around the adolescent boy, intending to tear him into shreds. Faced against such an attack, the eyebrows of the adolescent shot up as he raised his hands to his side and pulled them down lightly. Boom. Astonishingly, the Luo clan's guardian formation collapsed without the slightest resistance under his pull. A devastating shockwave rippled into the surroundings as the spiritual energy in the guardian formation diffused into the surroundings. After dealing with the Luo clan's guardian formation, the adolescent boy placed his hands behind his back as he gazed down coldly on the crowd from the sky. What other means do you have? Throw everything at me at once. In an instant, complete silence devoured the surroundings. Chapter 1579 Chichi. I'm sorry. Everyone simply stared at the adolescent boy in the air with aghast expressions. The guardian formation of the Luo clan had stopped many experts in their tracks since the inception of the Luo clan. Innumerable assaults of the otherworldly demonic tribe had been foiled by its formidable prowess. Yet, it did not even last a single second against a small, adolescent boy. How was that possible? Just what realm had the adolescent boy reached? The experts in the area could not help but gulp in shock, unable to believe what they were seeing. Have any of you seen that person before? Under normal circumstances, a person as powerful as that lad couldn't possibly have remained unknown. So, why do I have no impression of him at all? I have never seen him before either. It's as if he's appeared out of nowhere. If even the adolescent boy is this powerful, I can't begin to imagine how strong the young lady must be. Just who in the world is she? The clan heads of the sage clans subconsciously backed away, fearing that they would be implicated in this conflict. To the eyes of ordinary cultivators, these clan heads represented the top fighting prowess of the master-teacher continent, but even they did not dare stand against an expert of this caliber. They had no doubt that the adolescent boy would be able to claim their lives with a single flick of his finger. It would be utter foolishness to stand against such an opponent. Without a doubt, they were severely outmatched. Seeing how the adolescent boy had been able to overcome the collaboration of the many elders and tear apart the Luo clan's guardian formation so easily, the head of the Luo clan's face flickered with rage and fear. After a moment of silence, he turned around and clasped his fist. Yang Shi, I beseech you to lend us your help in this matter. The Luo clan still had its final trump card, but it should only be used in times of absolute emergency. As such, the head of the Luo clan could only place his hopes on Yang Shi. Of course, there's no way I can simply turn a blind eye to this matter, Yang Shi said as he turned his gaze to the sky. How could I be oblivious to the existence of an expert of your caliber on the continent? I really must be growing old. As he said those words, he slowly took step after step upward. His movements were very slow, but with every step that he took, an inconspicuous glow emanated from his feet. At the same time, the space that he trod on seemed to grow even stabler, seemingly reinforced by some mysterious energy. The adolescent boy was initially unfazed by Yang Shi's provocation, but watching as the latter slowly walked over, his eyebrows knitted together into a frown. Who are you? You aren't from the Luo clan, are you? The Luo clan doesn't have an expert of your caliber. I am Yang Xian. Yang Shi clasped his fist. Yang Xian of the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters? The adolescent boy widened his eyes in realization. He clasped his fist in reciprocation and said, "This is a problem between Milady and the Luo clan, so I ask you not to interfere in this matter. The Master Teacher Pavilion is responsible for maintaining order on the continent. You have chosen to wreak havoc in the Luo clan at an important occasion like this, completely disregarding the dignity of everyone here. I might be getting on in my years, but it's still my responsibility as a master teacher to stop you." Yang Shi replied coldly, "Since you aren't going to back down, make your move then. Let me see how powerful the rumored #1 expert of the Master Teacher continent is." The adolescent boy spat coldly. He crossed his arms, ready to make his next move, but at this moment, a nonchalant voice sounded beside him. "Enough, stand down," Luo Ruoxin instructed. "Yes, milady." Not daring to say a second word, the adolescent boy quickly retracted his palm and returned to his position behind Luo Ruoxin. At the same time, perhaps out of apprehension for Luo Ruoxin's strength, upon seeing the adolescent boy backing away, Yang Xian also stepped back and fell silent. Luo Ruoxin swept her gaze across the crowd, and after seeing that no one else was going to make a move, she turned to Zhong Xian and said, "Zhong Xian, let's go." The next moment, Zhong Xian felt the restraints on his body being released. Seeing that the adolescent boy had not killed anyone, Zhong Xian heaved a sigh of relief. He nodded in response to Luo Ruoxin's words, but he still could not help but turn around to face the beautiful young lady dressed in red behind him. Looking at her tear-stained cheeks, he felt a sharp ache in his heart. He walked up to her and said, "Chichi, I'm sorry." He really had no idea how he should express his apology toward this young lady. The engagement with the Zhong clan and the Luo clan was a huge matter on the Master Teacher continent. Innumerable clan heads, powerful experts, and esteemed seniors had come to witness this momentous event, yet he was simply going to walk out of this. He knew that his actions would inflict grievous damage on the young lady, but he could not imagine a life without Luo Ruoxin, and he could not let Luo Ruoxin down. "Why?" Luo Chichi asked silently. In the eyes of outsiders, she was an unparalleled genius who had broken innumerable records. But those who knew her would know that she was simply an innocent little girl who lacked a sense of security. It was due to this that Luo Shenqing had constantly been looking out for her, fearing that she would be taken advantage of by others. Zhong Xian had no idea how he should respond to the young lady's question. It had never been his intention to hurt her, which was also why he had never rejected her confession directly. He had thought that their fate would have ended with her departure, but who could have thought that life had something like this in store for them? While trying not to harm her, he ended up inflicting the greatest damage upon her. After a long moment of silence, Zhong Xian spoke up. "I always thought that you were the princess of the Baiyuan Empire. Back then, when they parted at the Qingyuan Empire, Yu Feiya had said that the reason Luo Chichi had been able to enroll into Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy back then was because of an insignia from the Baiyuan Empire's royalty, which left him thinking that Luo Chichi was the princess of the Baiyuan Empire. Not even in his wildest dream would he have thought that Luo Chichi had anything to do with the Luo clan. In order to hide my tracks from the Luo clan, I used the powers of the Dimension Silencer to seal my bloodline and cultivation. While I have assimilated the Dimension Silencer, I have yet to fully master it, so there are abilities that I'm still unable to fully control. As a result, not only did my cultivation fall to the transcendent mortal realm, some of my memories ended up being sealed, too. I had to slowly raise his cultivation in order to unseal my memories once more." Luo Chichi looked into the sky and said solemnly, "That is also why I was unable to save you back in the underground cavern despite the danger we were in." Zhong Xian nodded. When he found out that Luo Chichi was the little princess, he had already figured most of the story out. There were indeed some methods on the Master Teacher continent that allowed a cultivator to seal their cultivation and bloodline. For example, Zhao Huai's mother had sealed away her pure yin body and hidden herself away in the ancient domains. Afterward, she had married Zhao Huai's father, and despite having been together for many years, no one was any the wiser of her true strength. As for the reason that Luo Chichi had been in grade 2 back at the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, considering when she left the Sanctum of Sages, there was no way that she could have been in Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy for more than a year. However, Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy worked by a system where a student was promoted by their strength and master teacher rank rather than the time that they had spent in the academy. Rational explanations could easily be found for most parts of Luo Chichi's history, but there was just one doubt that he was unable to make sense of. The Luo clan's little princess possessed the discarnate constitution of divination, which should have made it impossible for him to use the Library of Heaven's Path on her. At the very least, this was the reason he thought that the Library of Heaven's Path did not work on Luo Ruoxin. However, he did use the Library of Heaven's Path on Luo Chichi, and a book had successfully been compiled on her. Yet, her true identity had not been detailed within the book. Could this mean that those who possessed the discarnate constitution of divination possessed the ability to fool and provide incorrect answers to the Library of Heaven's Path? If that was really the case, that would be really fearsome. He would have to slowly search for the answer in the future, or else he could not fully believe the information provided by the Library of Heaven's Path anymore. Back when I was still the little princess of the Luo clan, I did the royal family of the Baiyuan Empire a great favor. Even though I had sealed my cultivation, they were still more than willing to introduce me to the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy as a 4-star master teacher. It was with such an identity that my clan was unable to find me easily. I had always been the center of attention from the moment I was born, and I know that many would love to be in the position I am in. But this is not what I wanted. All I wanted was an ordinary life, living my days out peacefully and happily, Luo Chichi muttered with a desolate look on her face. Even though she had sealed her cultivation and bloodline, due to her past relationship with the royalty of the Baiyuan Empire, she had easily been able to convince them to do her a favor and recommend her to Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy. Furthermore, given her standing, the Baiyuan Empire had been more than willing to allow her to pass off as their princess. It was due to this convincing identity that she had been able to remain in the Hongyuan Empire for so long without anyone noticing. Even her close friend, Yu Feiya, was oblivious to her true identity. In a sense, this was similar to how Zhong Xian passed himself off as Yangshi's student. As long as one had a convincing cover, it would be unlikely for others to dig too deeply into one's identity. I told you before that there's someone whom I like, and that person is actually Luo Shi. All along, I thought that she was the little princess of the Luo clan, which resulted in this misunderstanding. Zhong Xian lowered his head as he spoke softly. He had to explain this matter properly to the young lady before him, or else the person who would be hurt would not only be her but Luo Ruoxin as well. I guessed. Luo Chichi nodded quietly before lowering her head, concealing the tears glistening in her eyes. Chichi, I am sorry. Zhong Xian bowed deeply. He finally understood why she had been able to take out so many thousand-year-old medicinal herbs the very last time that they met, as well as why Luo Chengxian suddenly appeared before him shortly after she left. From the looks of it, it seemed like Luo Chengxian had found her in Qingyuan City, and aware of her impending departure, she had made use of the excuse of needing to practice her pill-forging techniques to gift those medicinal herbs to him. At this moment, he also recalled Luo Shenqing saying that his younger sister had high aptitude in most occupations, but somehow, when it came to pill-forging, her talents seemed to fall flat. He had not thought too much about the matter back then, but everything seemed to fit like pieces of a puzzle to him now. That would also explain how a 5-star master teacher like her had been able to easily track down the underground cavern that Wu Yangzi had been locked in through the peculiar smithing method when no one in the Hongyuan Empire had been able to. Even with a huge portion of her memories sealed, her instincts were still far beyond those of ordinary cultivators. That would also explain why she had been able to improve far quicker than Yu Feiya and even his direct disciples. Most likely, when she achieved a breakthrough to the Saint Realm in the Qingyuan Empire, the seal that she had placed on herself had begun to unravel, rendering it impossible for her to conceal her bloodline anymore. This had allowed Luo Chengxian to find her, eventually leading to this series of events. Lifting her eyes to take one final glance at the young man before her, Luo Chichi decisively turned around, bellowing, "Scram!" I never want to see you again, thank you. Understanding Luo Chich's intentions, Zhongxian muttered softly before turning around and walking away. Nothing that he could say would mend the damage that he had done. Staying there would only worsen the other party's pain. Where do you think you are going? Voila. Barely after taking 2 steps, innumerable cold glints suddenly shimmered from the surroundings. The wounded elders of the Luo clan, along with Luo Shenqing, had drawn their blades, and every single one of them was glaring at Zhongxian with wintry eyes. Zhongxian, if you dare walk away today, you will be an eternal enemy of the Luo clan. The relationship between the Zhong clan and the Luo clan will become irreconcilable. The head of the Luo clan roared furiously. If you dare leave with that demoness, you'll become my sworn enemy. I, Luo Shenqing, swear that I'll devote my life to hunting you down and killing you. Luo Shenqing bellowed wrathfully. Zhongxian's footsteps visibly halted for a brief moment, but he still chose to continue advancing toward Luo Ruoxin. Die. Seeing that Zhongxian was still adamantly walking forward, Luo Shenqing flicked his palm and thrust it toward Zhongxian. Hold it right there. With a flick of his spear, Zheng Yang dissipated the force of Luo Xuanqing's palm strike. At the same time, Lu Chong, Wang Ying, and the others also quickly stood in between their teacher and the Luo clan. Chapter 1580 Zhongxian breaks the engagement. Progeny of combat and guild leader Wang Ying, are you two planning to make enemies out of our Luo clan? The head of the Luo clan growled menacingly. Didn't your Luo clan's Luo Shenqing nearly take our teacher's life earlier? You should be glad that he failed. Know that I won't allow any of you to put our teacher's life in jeopardy anymore. If you wish to harm even a single strand of my teacher's hair, you'll have to step over my dead body. Zheng Yang glared down at the crowd of the Luo clan intimidatingly. Anyone who intends harm to our teacher will be our enemy. Wang Ying and Lu Chong stepped forward as well. The auras emanated by the 3 of them towered as if an unscalable mountain. The elders who had intended to make a move earlier were forced to stop in their footsteps, not daring to move at all. They could not have cared less about the enmity between the Zhong clan and the Luo clan, but anyone who dared lay their hands on their teacher would be their enemy. Well said. Sword Saint Meng stepped forward and swung her sword threateningly too. My son will have my full support no matter what he does. If you intend to hurt him, don't even expect my blade to take mercy on you. You. The head of the Luo clan's face turned red with rage. He immediately turned his gaze toward Sword Saint Xing and questioned sharply, is this your intention too? Aye. Sword Saint Xing was put on the spot. The marriage between the 2 clans should have been happy news, but who could have thought that it would end in such a state? Seeing Sword Saint Xing's hesitation, Sword Saint Meng roared furiously. Zhong Zhenqing, you have already sacrificed your son once. If you make him suffer any more grievances, I'll take my son and leave the Zhong clan immediately for a place where you will never find us. This. Sword Saint Xing scratched his head in embarrassment before clasping his fist toward the head of the Luo clan and bowing. My apologies, clan head Luo, but I'll have to side with my own son. As he said those words, he went over and stood beside Sword Saint Meng. It was not just because he was afraid of his wife but also because he was painfully aware of the fact that he was indebted to his son. Good. Very good. It seems like all of you are intending to sever relations with our Luo clan today. The head of the Luo clan ground his teeth and roared with seething fury. Since that's the case, elders of the Luo clan, heed my orders. Seal the shrouding ethereal city and prevent anyone of the Zhong clan from escaping. Yes, clan head. Hualala. Upon receiving their orders, the elders of the Luo clan immediately moved to seal the surrounding space, such that even teleportation formations were rendered ineffective. Seeing that the Luo clan had chosen to make a move, one of the elders of the Zhong clan bellowed in response, "Disciples of the Zhong clan, bear arms and protect your clan head." Since both clans had already fallen out, there was no need for them to put up a front anymore. If a battle was inevitable, the Zhong clan would not go down without a fight. If I knew that this would happen, I never would have come to this engagement ceremony. No one could have thought that the 2 clans, which had been chummy with one another a moment ago, would suddenly fall out in the blink of an eye. The clan heads of the other sage clans watched the situation hesitantly by the side, not knowing what they should do. Helping the Luo clan would mean offending the Zhong clan, and vice versa, but they could not afford to offend either of these two powers. From the looks of it, it seemed like this matter would not end well. Stop! Seeing that a battle would break out at any moment, a sharp voice echoed across the entire city. The next moment, the little princess of the Luo clan, Luo Chichi, stepped forward. Wang. A spherical artifact materialized in her hand, and with a slight jolt, the sealed space immediately shattered apart, reverting to its original form. The Dimension Silencer, the ultimate treasure of the Luo clan. Its very presence carried an inviolable authority that made others not dare face it. Yusin. Taken aback by his daughter's actions, the head of the Luo clan panicked. Little sister. Luo Shenqing was also uncomprehending of his younger sister's actions. Father, elder brother, and elders, I hope that you can allow me to deal with my own matters. Luo Chichi clasped her fist. This. Seeing his daughter's determined gaze, the head of the Luo clan's fury dissolved into tenderness. Forget it. If you suffer the slightest grievance, make sure to tell me. I might be getting old, but I haven't grown senile. I won't allow others to bully my daughter. Thank you, father. Luo Chichi nodded. She turned her gaze toward Zhongxian, and with a pleading look in her eyes, she said, Teacher, you once told me that you would redress my grievances for me if someone bullied me. Do those words still count? Zhongxian was stunned, not knowing how he should respond. Those were the words that he had told her when they parted at Qingyuan City, but who could have thought that this would happen instead? When the one who had bullied her was him, how was he supposed to redress her grievances? I'm the one who did you wrong, Chichi. Zhongxian paused for a moment before saying, let's nullify the engagement between the Zhong clan and the Luo clan. You will no longer be bound by the restraints of your engagement. You will finally be able to live your life freely. He could not redress her grievances anymore, and the only thing that he could do was nullify the engagement and set her free. You are nullifying the engagement between the two of us? Luo Chichi shook her head. She stared into the distance with glazed eyes as a bitter smile spread upon her lips. Those that I hold dear will not necessarily be with me for life. Just like the broken artifact back then, no matter what I do, it can just never be the same anymore. You might be granting me the freedom I seek, but if that means that the person I love will leave me, never to return again. Teacher, you also know that I'm an obstinate person. I disagree to the nullification of our engagement. Why do you have to do this to yourself? Zhongxian looked at the young lady with a pained expression. If you announce the nullification of our engagement, your Luo clan will at least be able to preserve its dignity and honor. I know it, but my heart doesn't allow me to do so. Luo Chichi cried. If she proposed the nullification of their engagement, while this matter would still be a huge stain on the Luo clan's history, it would at least preserve their reputation and honor. However, that would also mean extinguishing the final flicker of hope that they could be together. It was simply too cruel for her to make such a decision. She had put all of her heart into this relationship, only to meet with such an ending. She could not accept it, and she did not want to accept it either. You should know that there's no other way out of this, Zhongxian said. Since the person that he had chosen was Luo Ruoxin, he had to nullify the engagement. Otherwise, he would only be further hurting everyone around him. Luo Chichi turned around and said, then, you should be the one to do it. I'm sorry. Knowing that Luo Chichi would not be able to do it, Zhongxian tossed his clan head token into the air and declared, I, Zhongxian, in my capacity as the head of the Zhong clan, hereby announce the nullification of my marriage with the little princess of the Luo clan. This nullification stems from my own problem, and I am unworthy to take her as my wife. Those words reverberated across space, causing the air to tremor. Yusin. Upon hearing those words, the head of the Luo clan widened his eyes in shock. At the same time, Luo Shenqing also glared at Zhongxian as if he was facing his sworn enemy. Even with Zhongxian's clarification, the world would not remain oblivious to the truth. Word would spread, and the reputation of the Luo clan would inevitably be sullied. Pavilion Master Ren, I have already made up my mind. I'll have to trouble the Master Teacher Pavilion to relay my declaration to the world word for word. Zhongxian took back his clan head token before clasping his fist toward Ren Qingyuan to make that request. The fastest way to disseminate the news would be through the Master Teacher Pavilion. I understand, Zhongshe. Ren Qingyuan nodded. When it came to relationships, no matter how one tried, it was impossible for everyone to be happy. There would never be a clear right or wrong. Chichi, take care of yourself. Having done that, Zhongxian took one last glance at the forlorn back of the young lady before walking away. The elders of the Luo clan wanted to stop him, but looking at the dimension silencer floating in the air, they had no choice but to hold themselves back. Teacher. Barely after taking a few steps, the young lady's voice sounded once more. Zhongxian stopped in his tracks and slowly turned around to look at the young lady's back. It was a long while before the young lady spoke once more. Will you still teach me pill forging in the future? Of course. Zhongxian nodded. I'll teach you whatever you want to learn. As always, I would ask for those who have read the raws or heard spoilers not to post future content in the comment section because it really ruins immersion. If you have read the raws or looked up spoilers, I'm sure you do have some love for this book, so please don't kill it through posting spoilers here. There are other more appropriate places to post and ask for spoilers. Even if I could delete comments, it would be hard for me to distinguish between legitimate theories and spoilers, so I can only appeal to your goodwill not to post spoilers, as well as the community to denounce those who spoil the story and not give a thumbs up to their comments. Author's note: the 11th arc, Zhongxian breaks the engagement, hereby comes to an end. The confession from Chichi was designed in accordance to a song that I really liked half a year ago, by Xiao Quan, the idea that my feelings for you don't just stop at the level of like, but I can't find the answer I am seeking for in your eyes. Each time that song plays on the car radio, I couldn't help but think of the second female lead of that drama and cry. For this character, I have cried many times. Anyway, let the curtain unfold on the next arc, finale at the Master Teacher Pavilion. In the next arc, Zhongxian shall become a great sage realm expert and stand at the top of the continent. Anyway, with this arc coming to an end, pour in your power stones and let's secure the top spot together. Chapter 1581. Why not marry them together? The crowd from the Zhong clan flew out of the shrouding ethereal city. Looking at the majestic buildings beneath, Zhongxian could not help but feel as if he had just been through a dream. He knew that he had really hurt that kind young lady this time around, but there was no way that he could dictate his emotions. If he forced himself to act against his will, he would only end up hurting everyone in the end. Rather than resorting to that, it would be better for him to end it decisively. It would be difficult at first, but once the young lady was able to let him go, she would be able to seek the true happiness that she deserved. Luo Ruoxin glanced over and asked, "You can't bear it?" Zhongxian shook his head and said, "This misunderstanding only happened because I thought that you were the little princess of the Luo clan. It's all right, I understand. You don't have to explain anymore." Luo Ruoxin nodded as she reverted to her usual nonchalance. I can still discern the truth. Seeing that Luo Ruoxin had chosen to trust him, Zhongxian heaved a sigh of relief. You said that you would bring me somewhere. Where are we going? You were investigating the kidnapping of Zhao Ya, Wei Ruyan, and Yuan Dao, right? Luo Ruoxin asked with a smile. Zhongxian's eyes lit up. You know where they are. I don't know where they are, but I have a good idea who the culprits that took them away are, Luo Ruoxin replied. Who are they? Zhongxian asked with clenched fists. He would never forgive those who dared to make a move on his students. If he could just find out who the culprits were, he would never let them go. I still can't confirm their background yet, but one of the reasons I came to find you is to stop them, Luo Ruoxin said. Stop them? Are they still intending to abduct more people? Zhongxian asked with narrowed eyes. That's not it. They are looking for a certain object, Luo Ruoxin explained. Most likely, it's a celestial amulet of legacy. They are really eyeing the temple of Confucius. Zhongxian harumphed coldly. It seemed like it was really the doing of the otherworldly demonic tribe, just as he had thought. It might get troublesome if there are too many people around, so it'll be best if your clan members do not come along. While Zheng Yang and Lu Chong are considerably powerful, the place that we are heading to will be quite dangerous, so my view is that it would be best not to bring them along for the time being, Luo Ruoxin said. The more people around, the more likely that they would be detected by the culprits. Furthermore, if anyone was caught by the culprits in the midst of the operation, that person would likely be used as a hostage against them. While Zheng Yang and the others were considerably powerful, they were still lacking in worldly experience. In treacherous lands, they might not necessarily have the intuition to avoid danger, and that would place their team in a vulnerable position. I concur with your view, but what if the culprits go after the Zhong clan and the Luo clan while we are away? Wouldn't that simply put us in more trouble? Zhong Xian was still a little worried. Rest assured, with Yang Shi and so many experts around, even if the culprits go for them, they will eventually have to retreat in disappointment. Luo Ruoxin replied with a smile. I guess you're right. Zhong Xian nodded. With Yang Shi, the Xingmeng sword saints, Zheng Yang, Lu Chong, and the experts of the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters to hold the fort while they were gone, even if an ancient sage arrived, he might not necessarily be able to get away unscathed. All right, let's go. Having made up his mind, Zhong Xian quickly spoke with his parents to fill them in on what was going on. After which, he handed back the clan head token and advised them to help groom Zhong Zhouxiao as the next clan head before heading off with Luo Ruoxin. Just who in the world is that Luo Ruoxin? Watching as the two of them flew into the distance, Sword Saint Meng could not help but turn her gaze toward Yang Shi. He was the most knowledgeable of them there, so if anyone could recognize her, it was him. Yang Shi pondered for a moment before saying, I'm not too sure either, but I think that she might be related to that place. That place? Sword Saint Meng asked in incomprehension. However, the very next moment, Sword Saint Xing suddenly interjected. Yang Shi, are you referring to the 100 schools of philosophers? Indeed. Shortly after Kong Shi departed back then, all of his students vanished one after another. While no one had any concrete news on them, based on some of the records and conjectures of our predecessors, it seems like they took root in a place away from the continent. Yang Shi replied. A while ago, the Master Teacher Pavilion sent me a message saying that shortly after the Temple of Confucius came into sight, suspicious figures that could possibly be the descendants of the 100 schools of philosophers were spotted in the vicinity. In fact, they possessed the discarnate constitution of divination, which prevented the seers from divining their identities. They disappeared very quickly from the area, so our men weren't able to interrogate them. Considering the sudden appearance of Luo Ruoxin, and the formidable might wielded by the adolescent boy beside her, I think that there's a good chance that it might be them. The 100 schools of philosophers possess the true heritage of Kongsha, cultivating unparalleled secret manuals. On top of that, they are also blessed with superior innate strength. Now that you mention it, it does seem likely. Sword Saint Meng also came to a realization. I was thinking that Xian'er was too short-sighted to have given up on a watermelon for a sesame seed, but since she's an offspring of the 100 schools of philosophers, I can rest easy now. After saying those words, a gleeful smile emerged on her lips. The marriage with the Luo clan should have been the most perfect ending. Not only would it have widened the Zhong clan's influence, it also would have propped her son up to the top of the Master Teacher continent in an instant, granting him strength to stand against even the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters. However, since her son did not like it, there was nothing that she could do. She owed her son simply too much, so the least she could do was allow him to pursue his own happiness. Nevertheless, she still understood that this was a great loss to the Zhong clan, considering that they had made enemies out of the Luo clan. However, who would have thought that this mishap would actually end up drawing connections with the powerful 100 schools of philosophers instead? If that's truly the case, not only did the Zhong clan not make a loss, its future growth potential had also become unlimitedly great. Can feelings even be measured using gains and losses? Seeing his wife's response, Sword Saint Xing was rendered speechless. The marriage between the Zhong clan and the Luo clan should have provided us with the key to opening the Temple of Confucius, but with the fallout with the Luo clan, we won't be able to break the seal anymore. Not only have the plans of the master-teacher pavilion fallen through, the safety of mankind could very well be at risk. As Sword Saint Xing spoke, a hint of jealousy seemed to seep into his voice. Ever since his son had appeared, his position in the family seemed to have been falling lower and lower. It was one thing for him to be scolded every single day, but to think that he would end up having to fuss over minor matters such as his son's future wife instead of conferring over major matters that affected the safety of mankind. Really, just how low had he fallen? Why should my son be sacrificed for the rest of the world? There are plenty of people out there to think about the Temple of Confucius anyway. All I hope is for my son to live his life happily and peacefully. Sword Saint Meng waved her hands indifferently. Narrow-minded. Sword Saint Xing harumphed coldly. Zhong Zhenxing, I dare you to repeat those words. Sword Saint Meng flew into a rage. All right. While the Temple of Confucius has started to surface, it seems like there's still some time before it truly appears, Yangsha said. My senior should still have time to mend the relations between both clans. Furthermore, judging from the little princess's attitude, it seems like she still harbors deep feelings for my senior. As long as we explain the matter properly to her, I think she should be willing to go along with us. While things had not gone very well, as long as the little princess did not harbor that deeper grudge toward Zhongxian and the Zhong clan, there should still be some room for reconciliation. Besides, the predecessors of the Luo clan had also made many sacrifices to protect mankind, which showed that they were not narrow-minded people who would allow personal grudges to get in the way of important matters. While they had been humiliated by Zhongxian's actions, when the safety of mankind was at stake, they would still be likely to swallow their grudges temporarily and grudgingly collaborate with the rest of them. Yangsha is right. Later on, I'll try to talk to my son about this matter. It's nothing much for a man to take several wives at once, and if it really comes down to it, he could just marry the little princess of the Luo clan as well. The young lady is quite a beauty anyway. More importantly, she has quite a bottom, which means that she's suited to bear children. Regardless of whether it's Luo Ruoxin or Luo Chichi, wouldn't it be good to take all of them in? That would be a happy ending, right? Sword Saint Meng nodded. Of course, dear. It's nothing much for a man to take several wives, so having 2 wives is not too big a deal. Sword Saint Xing nodded in agreement. Having 2 wives is not too big a deal. Zhong Zhenxing, are you planning to take in another woman? Sword Saint Meng sneered as she glared at Sword Saint Xing murderously. I'm referring to our son. As if plunged into an icy cavern, Sword Saint Xing felt his hair raising on end. I really am not talking about myself. Save me. I'll never dare to say such words in the future again. Yes, you're right. No, I won't even think of it anymore. Please don't kill this book by posting spoilers. Chapter 1582 White Creek Mountain. Standing atop the back of an aerial saint beast while gazing at the white clouds that were swiftly flitting past them, Luo Ruoxin explained, the place that we are heading to is the Empire Alliance's White Stream Mountain. White Creek Mountain? Zhong Xian's body jolted in astonishment. I know that place. That was the name of the mountain range that had appeared on Qingtian Emperor's painting. He had seen Kong Shi's illusory figure on the mountain range, and in order to conceal the truth from the Qingtian Emperor, he had altered it into a picture of bathing beauties. He had learned its name from Luo Shenqing a while back, but with too many matters on hand, he had not had a chance to check on it yet. Could it be that the illusory figure of Kong Shi actually hinted at the location of a celestial amulet of legacy? There might just be such a possibility, or else it would not have compelled the entire Qingtian lineage and even vicious to risk exposing themselves for it. Since we know the location, why don't we just teleport right over? It would be faster that way, Zhong Xian suggested. There's no need for that. Luo Ruoxin replied with a smile. It would be too troublesome to travel there through teleportation, and it isn't safe either. Wu Chen, yes. The adolescent boy nodded. He walked up to the window and tapped his finger lightly on it. Hula! The surrounding air suddenly began warping frenziedly, and spatial folds appeared all around. Before long, a massive vortex was formed around them. As the vortex spun faster and faster, the area that it covered grew larger and larger. Very soon, the eye of the vortex formed a stable white region. Who? The aerial saint beast beneath them seemed to be accustomed to such a situation. Flapping its wings, it dived right for the middle of the vortex. This is spatial compression. A look of disbelief surfaced on Zhongxian's face. It was said that those who had mastered space would be able to compress it infinitely, allowing one to traverse over 1,000 li with a single step. He had thought that it was just a legend, but who could have thought that the adolescent boy would be able to pull it off so easily? It isn't spatial compression but the exploitation of a unique trait of space, the adolescent boy explained nonchalantly. The space that we see appears to be stable and impeccable, such that even our spiritual perception can't notice any anomalies in it. However, there are inherent wormholes weaved into it that can be utilized to swiftly leap from one location to another. I see. Zhongxian could roughly grasp the concept, but it sounded a little far away to him. Even though he had learned the heavenly art of dimension unravel, he had only reached a mastery of 3 dan in it. There was still some way off before he could reach the top. Spatial leap is a technique that only ancient sages are able to utilize. Wu Chen is only able to pull it off due to the unique bloodline of the Saint Beast and his deep comprehension of space, Luo Ruoxin added. I see. Zhongxian nodded. At this point, he could not resist asking out of curiosity, given how young Wu Chen is, how can he wield such formidable strength? No matter how he looked at the adolescent boy, the latter appeared to be only around 13 to 14. Yet, the boy already possessed strength that he could only match while using Kongsha's blood essence. This was inconceivable to him. Even if the adolescent boy was a carnate saint, causing his body to age much slower than others, it was hard to imagine him achieving such strength within a short period of time. Wu Chen looks younger than he actually is due to his unique bloodline, Luo Ruoxin explained with a shake of her head. Not intending to linger too long on this topic, she pointed to the area ahead and said, "We've arrived." Looking ahead, Zhongxian realized that the aerial saint beast that they were on had already traversed through the passageway, and a majestic mountain range had appeared around him. The mountains around him pierced right through the layers of clouds, and they spanned a vast area around him. The imposing scale of the mountain range felt incredibly pressurizing, leaving one's breathing a little ragged. "It's the White Creek Mountain," Zhongxian remarked grimly. This was indeed the mountain range that he was depicted on the painting of the copper-masked figure back then. They would have been identical if not for the real mountain range being even more towering and imposing. A celestial amulet of legacy is within the mountain range. I'm not too sure about its exact location at the moment, but we can check using a unique artifact. As Luo Ruoxin spoke, she flicked her wrist in the air, and a book materialized in front of her. This book carried an aura that left one with a dreamy feeling. Looking at it curiously, Zhongxian was just about to ask what it was when he suddenly sensed something. He quickly flicked his wrist, and a crystal sphere materialized in his hand. This crystal sphere was none other than the Qiu Wu Palace. That was the ancient domain left behind by Kongsha's follower, ancient sage Qiu Wu. He had entered its premises with Luo Ruoxin previously, and it had also been the location where they confirmed their relationship. At this moment, the Qiu Wu Palace was shaking non-stop, as if it was resonating in harmony to the book that Luo Ruoxin had taken out. This. Zhongxian frowned doubtfully. As the master of the Qiu Wu Palace, he could clearly feel that the book before him had come from the same origin as the crystal sphere. There was an inseverable connection between the two of them. I acquired this book from the Qiu Wu Palace. Using it, we will be able to find the exact location of the celestial amulet of legacy. Luo Ruoxin answered the doubts in Zhongxian's mind. However, that only left Zhongxian even more taken aback. He had been together with the young lady in the Qiu Wu Palace, so why was he unaware that she had acquired such a book? There were rumors that the Qiu Wu Palace contained a clue to finding the celestial amulet of legacy, so he had searched the entire place multiple times, only to be unable to find the supposed clue. Who could have thought that it was already in her hands? The reason I wanted to enter the Qiu Wu Palace was to find this item. Do you remember how I wandered freely for quite a while after entering the Qiu Wu Palace? It was during that period of time that I found this book, Luo Ruoxin explained. I see. Zhong Xian nodded. To be honest, he had found it bizarre how the young lady had insisted on entering the Qiu Wu Palace with him, only to refuse all treasures, cultivation technique manuals, and the like. Not to mention, she had even helped him assimilate the entire Qiu Wu Palace. So, it turned out that she had already acquired what she had been looking for. Wang. While the two of them were speaking, a light hum sounded from the book as it began surging toward the top of the mountain. Let's follow it. The two of them quickly followed the movements of the book so as to not lose sight of it. Not too long later, just when they were roughly at the midpoint of the mountain, the book finally came to an abrupt halt. This is the place. Zhong Xian swiftly cast a sweeping gaze over the surroundings before nodding slowly. This was indeed the exact spot on the painting where he had altered Kong Shi's silhouette for the bathing beauties. It would be too much of a coincidence for the two clues to point to the same point by sheer coincidence. Chances were that there was a folded space somewhere here that would lead them to an ancient domain where the celestial amulet of legacy was hidden. It's good enough that we have confirmed the location. If my intuition fails me not, the culprits who have captured Zhao Ya, Wei Ruyan, and Yuan Dao should be heading here very soon. With a wave of her hand, Luo Ruoxin placed the book back into her storage ring before standing patiently on the spot, not anxious about finding the hidden folded space at all. The Zhong clan, Luo clan, and the Master Teacher Pavilion have a celestial amulet of legacy each. Are you certain that the culprits will come here instead? Zhong Xian asked doubtfully. If the goal of the culprits was to open the Temple of Confucius, they were already halfway there with the capture of Zhao Ya and the others. It was a known fact that the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters, the Zhong clan, and the Luo clan had a celestial amulet of legacy each, so those three powers should have been the primary targets for the culprit. Furthermore, it should have been impossible to find this location without the map from the Qingtian Emperor or the book in Luo Ruoxin's possession. Please don't kill this book by posting spoilers. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.